Go Figure TV. Revolutionary salute. Revolutionary salute. Like, share, subscribe. Welcome to the House of Revolution. You know I'm your humble host. The the revolution in the small hats are season. Let's just say they keep in the White House. Trump picks Israel first war horse in his cabinet. Before we get into that, be sure to wipe your feet. That means hit the like button. Like, share, subscribe, support the platform, y'all. Well, you know, revolution is for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I got some revolutionary breakfast for y'all this morning. Now, I seen this late. I got home late last night, then ran that live for y'all. But I seen this. So we're going to talk about this cabinet that Trump is putting together. I know they try to kill him. And he might still feel like he could go at any time now. There's no reason why he should have so many Israelis firsters in his cabinet.
Well, if you were hoping a new Trump administration would put America first, you might be sort of disappointed this morning. Big trouble in Trump world. In fact, who's pulling his strings?
Because one thing I'm not going to do, I'm going to bring it to y'all. Every bit of it, we're going to fight back. We help put him in power. We don't want war. That's for sure. We want that border. We want that border dealt with. We want to deal with this crime. We want to make sure we socket to our pockets. We want to help our financial situation. But we don't want to be kissing Israel ass. We don't want to be subservient to Israel. And we don't want to, I tell you, you avoid war. You avoid war in Ukraine. So what if you get World War III in the Middle East? That's serious business, and a lot of these people you put in power hate China. So what if you get World War III over Taiwan? This is serious business.
Big money flowing in? Is that who's pulling his strings here? First, let me give you some of this news up front. This morning, Trump selected South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem to lead the Department of Homeland Security. Now, this is an interesting choice.
Israeli first.
She is a bit of a steady... she's kind of like rock steady. You might see that as a positive sign. And she's been a longtime Trump supporter. So, okay, you've got that. You need loyalists around him, which is true. She's a rancher. She's a farmer, small business owner. She became famous, though, when she of course refused to put a statewide mask mandate in place. I was like, yeah, no, none of that craziness. But she also famously fabricated a story where she met with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Of course, that didn't happen. And back in March, you'll remember, Noem also introduced a bill cracking down on criticism of Israel. What? Like in America, you can't criticize a foreign country? I criticize America all the time. We can't criticize Israel? Can't do that.
That's disrespectful.
Ensuring the security of God's chosen people was the name of it. Yeah, ensuring the security of God's chosen people.
That's disgusting. Who the hell are you talking about? You talking about us? You got reparations on the table. What the hell are you talking about, ma'am? See, this is a bad sign, man. And I understand these politics is deep and it's treachery, and Trump got to be prepared. But this is ridiculous. You surround yourself with Israelis first. What the fuck you think the policy of America gonna be? It's gonna be Israel first.
Well, okay.
Shouldn't that be all of us?
Right. Like, no, it's just Israel. Israel's God's chosen people. So that's who will be your new Department of Homeland Security head.
That's a lot.
Up there from South Dakota. Again, we don't pull any punches on this show. I'm just giving you the facts, okay? Anyway, she'll be in charge of ICE. And her main responsibility will be close the border along with border czar Tom Homan.
See, that's why I don't like that, because Mayorkas, the dude who was just ahead of all that stuff, he's a small head. You see how they just keeping their people in power? Why do the Zionists, why do the Israelis first have to be in control of our border and what's going on with our border? Hell no.
And get the 50 million illegal immigrants out of our country. Stop the spread of fentanyl into our country. So if she does that, I will applaud her wholeheartedly, despite her past transgressions.
Okay.
I will support her wholeheartedly if she secures our border, makes America safe, gets out the illegal immigrants in the United States, and doesn't go sideways. She listens to what Trump wants, follows his lead on this, and also listens to Tom Homan. Fine, we won't have any problems. Okay, now the really bad news. Trump hasn't confirmed this yet. To be clear, we haven't had confirmation yet from the Trump campaign. I've messaged a couple of people there on the Trump side. Haven't gotten any 100% on this yet, unless it's happened within the last 3 minutes and I haven't noticed it. So I apologize. But according to reports, Senator Marco Rubio will be the Secretary of State.
That's a big mistake.
Okay, now
that's a big mistake. That's a big mistake. He's an Israeli first, Zionist hardliner, anything for Israel, war, especially with Iran. What? He hate Maduro. He hate Cuba because he's a damn descendant of an immigrant his goddamn self. This is disgusting, man. This man, he helped kill Gaddafi. I'll never forget. This bastard was cheering on. He ain't found it. He ain't seen an African nation he don't want to liberate with bombs and give them some democracy with tanks and planes on their ass. This is disgusting, man. Secretary of State? Hell no. That's the president. That's the Secretary of State is really the president when you're going overseas. That's what Anthony Blinken, the Zionist, just was. That man was really running the White House. What the hell you give Marco Rubio this little? Come on. What the hell? See, Trump, see, he must feel like Rubio, because they got a Florida thing going, will be loyal to him. I don't know what the hell he doing with this move. Loyal to you, boy, please. Rubio is loyal to the Israelis, Trump. And this get Rubio close to the fucking White House. If something happened to Trump, that's real talk.
This is from the New York Times. Trump expected to name Marco Rubio, and then Elon Musk tweeted shortly after this kind of news came out, hey,
brother,
don't believe anything.
Right, brother? We've been worried
don't
about
believe the
you.
rumors until Trump confirms things on Truth Social. Okay, so I'm not going to believe it.
After which I backed off the cliff.
Yeah, I was like, okay, let's back this up. But there have been some other troubling signs in the past few days with other choices. So I'm not backing off the cliff entirely. This would be a disaster. Putting Israel first, that would be Marco Rubio's plan. Warmonger.
Also, Ukraine first.
Yeah.
He is completely in the tank for continuing the war on Ukraine. He doesn't care who dies.
So he's a warmonger. He would be in charge of the State Department, means pushing us into war with Iran, Russia, China. This guy wants war in the worst way, and he's heavily funded in that way, of course, so that's why. By the way, Trump once said this about Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio is a total lightweight who I wouldn't hire to run one of my smaller companies, a highly overrated politician.
That is before Truth Social, that's a truth.
That's a truth.
We agree with that. Yeah.
That is a truth. Absolutely.
You can't forget that, sir, please.
And Rubio.
48 laws of power, though, what Trump doing with Rubio. If you don't know, you don't. If you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. There's 48 laws of power with what Trump is doing with Rubio, you know.
Said this about Trump. Watch.
5 days ago, we began to explain to the American people that Donald Trump is a con artist. The party of Lincoln and Reagan and the presidency of the United States will never be held by a con artist. Friends do not let friends vote for con artists. And friends don't let friends vote for con artists.
I can just tell you that a con artist is about to take over the Republican Party and the conservative movement, and we have to put a stop to it. There is no way we are going to allow a con artist to take over the conservative movement, and Donald Trump
is a big boy gang.
Artist.
So Trump ain't worried about all them work. Hey, Trump ain't worried about that shit. Kamala Harris said Joe Biden was a racist, that she was the VP. The politics is dirty. But what I'm worried about is the Israelis forcing that on Trump. There's no way in hell I believe Trump wanted Marco Rubio as his Secretary of State. You know how powerful Secretary of State is? I believe they forced this on Trump. That's a problem.
Yeah, con artist. So what the hell happened? You know, Donald Trump is a forgiving person, but I think it goes beyond that.
Wait. No, liberals tell me he's not. They say he's got an axe to grind and he's going to go punish everybody that ever crossed him.
Yeah.
So then liberals could not have it both ways, right? That either he has an axe to grind and he's very vengeful, or he's not, or he hires Marco Rubio. That those two things don't compute.
Yeah, I mean, remember when Hillary Clinton, when he beat Hillary Clinton and he got in there and was like, you're gonna lock her up, right? You're gonna prosecute her.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, we need to heal, right? So I don't think he's as vengeful as people make him out to be. And certainly after being shot in the head, I think he's even less vengeful than that. But anyway, so what the hell happened here?
But is there nobody else?
Right, that's my point.
Man,
First of all, it hasn't happened 100% yet.
Okay, you're not supposed to have got that job.
You may be watching this later, and find out that it's now been confirmed, but we still haven't had confirmation from President
Trump. Or that it's false, or that somebody else takes it. Who knows?
What the hell happened here? Well, money happened. That's what happened. Sheldon Adelson, of course, fully backed Rubio, fully backed Trump. Hey, Donald, he'll be pro-Israel, so pick this guy. I floated a lot of money your way. So is that exactly what's about to happen here? Or is there another theory, which is that they're floating this idea? There's a leak somewhere, right? Someone floated this idea internally, and it's a way to catch leakers within the Trump team? Could be, right? And a lot of big tech companies do that. Like Apple does that. They purposefully leak false information to see who leaks it, and then they know exactly who leaked it, and then they fire that person. Could be. I hope so. Mike Adams, friend of the show, he's tweeted this. Health Ranger Mike Adams says, if Marco Rubio is named as Secretary of State, then every single person who donated money to the Trump campaign should demand a refund. And they should realize that Trump 2.0 is just Bush 1.0. Neocons galore, endless wars. The swamp is in charge. Might as well ask Dick Cheney to be Secretary of State at this point. And then he goes on from there. He says, by the way, he points out Jeffrey Sachs would have been a great Secretary of State, or Dennis Kucinich.
Definitely.
Keep us out of wars.
You could have put a peace prophet in there as the Secretary of State, not a fucking psychopath like Marco Rubio, bro. That's serious business, man. Trump is showing it is a bad sign. So we starting off telling the truth here on this platform. It's a bad goddamn sign. And no, you don't get everything you want in politics. But who gives a damn if the border's secure? If they start World War III, you don't need no border. You won't have a fucking country. If the nuclear missiles start flying, I'll tell you that right now.
Just so you understand what a deep state swamp rat Israel first Marco Rubio is, this is how much money he's taken from Israel. Look at all that money. That is, and by the way, that's as of March of this year. Okay, here's maybe a better depiction of it.
We don't need to have people in the American government that hate their own people. He hates his own people, man. I can't stand those Spanish people who in Florida. They hate themselves. Puerto Rican, they Puerto Ricans. The Cubans hate the Cubans. The Haitians, they don't like each other. Stop all that bullshit and kissing America's ass, kind of trying to be white. We can't trust nobody who don't love their goddamn self. That's why we all right. We love ourselves. We probably the only people who love our goddamn self. And Marco Rubio think he white. And see, this Rubio shit, we got to throw this shit away. This man is a small hat. I can guarantee you if we peel back the layers of his ancestry, we're going to find out this man is really a small hat. See, when they came over there, we learned that they switched those names and put those names. I don't know damn what they say their name is. We find out all that is a lie.
Okay.
That's Marco Rubio. Michael Tracy, journalist Michael Tracy says Marco Rubio would arguably be the most hardcore interventionist Secretary of State for an incoming administration in decades, perhaps rivaling Hillary Clinton. Definitely outpaces Colin Powell, who was in the relatively more realist faction of the George W. Bush administration. Of course, Colin Powell got us into the Iraq War by relatively a fake vial of shit and told us to go to war. Rand Paul, son of Ron Paul, probably our best U.S. senator right now, agrees with the Hillary comparison. Watch.
How do you view Hillary Clinton in terms of her foreign policy views?
I see her as a neoconservative. I see her I see her and Rubio as being the same person. They both want a no-fly zone. They both have supported activity in Libya, the war in Libya that toppled Gaddafi.
Come on, man. You heard him? Rubio and Hillary Clinton, the same people, except he younger. That should let you. I know about this weasel Marco Rubio. I watched him laugh and dance with glee as Gaddafi was murdered. That's when I found out about that, but I kept my eyes on him, and I knew they was trying to. He was going to trying to be president one day, and he hate Cuba. He hate Fidel. He want Assad dead. He want Assad Shakur locked up. That's a fact. He want Assad Shakur in prison. He was right there when they put an extra $1 million on her head, him and Trump and them. I didn't like that. But this bastard want war. Trump saying you don't want war. Why the hell you put this man in charge of wars and discussing wars and discussing peace with other nations? Nobody want to talk to Marco Rubio about no fucking peace. Nobody. They hate his guts in Africa. They hate his guts in Latin America. Russia can't stand him. China can't stand him. Iran can't stand him.
intervention that made us less safe. They both have supported pouring arms into the Syrian civil war, a mistake that I think allowed ISIS to grow stronger. And they both have supported the Iraq war. So, I mean, what's the difference?
They both help ISIS.
What's the difference between Marco Rubio? What's the difference between Marco Rubio and Hillary Clinton to Rand Paul? Nothing. Nothing is different between the two of them. I have to agree with them.
Trump don't want to give Rand Paul no job because that's one of the real American first white boys. They mean it. For Israel, so you'll hear them say, we need to stop giving stuff to African nations. And you'll say, oh, they racist. No, they saying nobody get nothing except America. I said, oh, okay, that's fair and balanced. I can't argue with you. Nobody, no European nations, squat. Israel, you get nothing. Oh, you see, that's fair. I can deal with a white guy who said, guess what? Only Americans. We got to deal with America. They see, that's a real America first. These people playing like they're America first, but they're really Israel first. And Trump is hiring a bunch of people who really are Israel first. And he in the America first, people like Rand Paul, he ain't giving no damn job. People like Colonel McGregor, he not giving them a job.
Even
Judge Andrew Napolitano, he should be bringing that man off of YouTube, man. That's serious business.
Rand Paul's father this morning, Congressman Dr. Ron Paul, just released this a few minutes ago.
The odds look pretty good that he will become Secretary of State, which I think
they really stole this man. They really stole this man movement, Trump, and a lot of them America First phonies. They didn't want to let Ron Paul be. He has some bigot in his history. I say that, but as the policies he have, they're stealing his policies. He had America First policies. No wars, nowhere for nobody. I like that. I love that. Trump, they talk like this man right here, but then they do everything for Israel. You see, they need to let Ron Paul advise them. He got some great America First and audit the goddamn Federal Reserve. He been saying that. And they really say he don't like the small hats. I don't know that. Audit that Federal Reserve. Close the Federal Reserve. They have ruined this country.
I think will lead to problems because there's two different kinds of people in the world, the way I see it, when I want to simplify it. There are the authoritarians, and there are the people who want to follow, voluntarism and peaceful means. And I would put him into the category of authoritarianism because he's expressed himself. And his authoritarianism doesn't mean that he beats up on people. That's a personal thing. But authoritarians in politics is much, much more deadly. Yeah. They have more power and they can do things. They can change the world. They can, especially in the Secretary of State, they can set the stage for a conflict that becomes very real and very dangerous. So,
yeah, look what Antony Blinken, right? Look what's going on right now in Ukraine. Look what's happening in the Middle East under the leadership of Antony Blinken. Coming up in a few minutes, we're going to talk about Antony Blinken, who just went to Brussels right now to try to get more money for Ukraine because he's worried about Trump coming in. So they can set the agenda.
I learned about studying the Secretary of State when Hillary Clinton, I was just getting out of prison, I started studying it when Hillary Clinton was the one who killed Gaddafi. She forced Barack Obama's hand. This house nigga really didn't want to do that. And he said that's his biggest regret. She let Hillary Clinton bloodthirsty ass. I'll never forget that. That nigga become president. Gaddafi them threw a big banquet. This was a curse. He called him the son of Africa. Ooh, the white people hated that. They called him the son of Africa. Okay. Tell all the great things they wanted Barack to do. They thought it was gonna be a new day. They put a hit on Gaddafi. And Hillary Clinton, I found out as the Secretary of State how powerful they was, man. They could wage war, and she did it. Created ISIS. Ruined that man's name around the goddamn world, made him a damn war criminal.
You can set the authoritarian agenda. It's very, very troubling. And of course, let me remind you that Rubio was on the record multiple times about he's almost as bad as Lindsey Graham in wanting to go to war with Iran.
Lindsey Graham and
so if you don't get a deal,
hold on.
What's the alternative? Do we have
Lindsey Graham and John McCain raised him? That's their student for war. That's their baby right there, Marco Rubio. Them war hawks. John McCain, that's his puppy. So when you think of John McCain, that crazy bastard, Marco Rubio learned everything he know from them.
go to war? Is it necessary to be absolutely certain they don't have a nuclear weapon or the capability to build one?
And I think that the best way to have achieved that is to leave in place both the unilateral sanctions and the international sanctions. You combine that with a very clear demarcation to the Iranian regime, and that is this: if you cross this threshold, you will face military action on the part of the United States. We don't want that to happen, but the risk of a nuclear Iran is so great that option must be on the table.
So if it came to that, that would be an option that you would actually
absolutely
consider and use.
And let me tell you why. If we don't do it, someone else will. The Saudis are not going to sit there and watch Iran build a Shia bomb without a Sunni bomb. The Israelis are not going to sit there and watch a regime that calls for their destruction develop the capability to do so. But again, we would hope to have avoided that.
The Sunnis already got a bomb. It's called the Pakistani bomb. See, this crazy lunatic just want war with Iran because he's a Zionist and a small hat. It's genetics. This is disgusting. All that Rubio crap, we're not falling for that, boy. We know you're Goldstein at heart.
At that point, by severely limiting and sanctioning Iran for its nuclear ambitions. And quite frankly, I think this deal could literally lead to increasing the prospects for war.
But what you're saying here, we cannot let Iran become a nuclear power, and we have to do whatever is necessary if that includes going to war.
Absolutely.
With Iran.
By the way, if Iran.
Absolutely.
Okay. First of all, he looks like a mini.
Why didn't go to war with North Korea? That's when they showed the world they was cowards. All that's how North Korea. They were saying North Korea would not get a nuclear weapon. North Korea tested that nuclear weapon. They went into Iraq. That's when the world seen they were some punks, but Putin knew they was dangerous punks and deadly punks, and that's when Putin got ready for war. They was threatening North Korea at the same time they was threatening Saddam. North Korea tested a nuclear bomb. Then they said, look the other way. You think you're going to bully Iran? But that's not the point. World War III is the point. This man cannot be Secretary of State.
Second of all, that is the policy of the Obama administration, which led to sanctions of mass destruction for 8 years for a nuclear program that we never were able to prove. If you want to read about how demonic our sanctions were with with Iran, read the book, The Art of Sanctions, and you will be truly horrified at what goes on our behalf to innocent.
Sanctions really is an act of war. And if you read the history of World War II and how we purposely kept sanctioning Japan and creating blockades so they would attack us so we could seize all that. We didn't give a damn about Germany because Russia was dealing with that. We didn't enter the war to fight no damn Germany. Russia was dealing with that, the Soviet Union. We wanted to go seize all that prime real estate and control Asia and get all that Japanese kingdom, relieve them of that. But we needed them because we wanted to play like we the good guy. We don't like war. We needed them to attack us first. So sanctions, crippling somebody's economy, starving their people. You know sooner or later those people will retaliate and do something, you see. See, that's what America be wanting. That's what we want Iran. We want all these people to just attack us because we're starving their civilians. Then we can attack.
People, innocent civilians, and why we justify that. That's what the Obamas did. That's how the Obamas waged war across the Middle East. How is he serious about this?
Israeli first.
Did anybody else catch I had to laugh where he said that, like, if Iran gets out of line and we don't go to war with them, it's bad because if we don't, someone else will.
Yeah.
Right. We've got to do it. We've got to be the ones.
We can't miss an opportunity for war.
Yeah, exactly. Like, damn it, somebody else bombed Iran. Damn it.
Shoot, we wanted to die for that cause. I mean, not me personally, but I wanted to send other people to die for that cause. I wanted that to be me.
There's not drama in this. This is reality right now. If he picks Marco Rubio, you can expect a much more hawkish foreign policy. And, you hear reports that, he'll listen to Trump on why would you put a neocon in there who's not aligned with your beliefs?
Revolutionary salute to our brother James White for the donation to the war chest. Revolution is way of life. Absolutely appreciate the love, family. Salute. This is the war hawks have seized Trump, and I know what's going on. I know exactly what's going on, and I can't believe that he's doing this. But these politics is way bigger than we could believe, and the pressure that's being applied is unimaginable. I already tried to whack him. They're telling him leave foreign policy to them the Zionists, and they're going to give him everything. I'm going to tell you what, they're going to give him everything he wants in America. They're going to let him have his border czar. He made one of his lawless, his secretary, his staff, his person that's second in command. I forgot what that's called at the moment. But he's made a deal with these people, bro. And nobody, I'm realizing this as I'm looking now, because he's relinquished foreign affairs to the Zionists and Israeli firsters. That's a big fucking mistake. They want war. But they're telling him they're going to allow him to crush his enemies in America. That's a big problem for all these people who've been going after him. And Trump, he'll lose focus because he's so pissed that way. Even his wife, Jill Biden, wanted to meet his wife. His wife say, hell no, man, y'all went through my underwear. His wife, a man's wife, a man gonna do his wife wrong. His wife wrong retaliation because the FBI went through her drawers. So I'm telling y'all this right now, prepare for this. They're telling Trump, we're going to let you deal with all of the traitors in America, but we got to deal with foreign policy. That's a big fucking problem, bro. That he should not have made. He should not be trying to get personal retribution and relinquishing this World War III to the people who want World War III. That's disgusting, bro.
To end these wars. Why would you choose a Marco Rubio? I have to hope that they're just floating this
it might not be
there
that way
to test the waters,
that's my reading
and they're not going to pick him as Secretary of State. But maybe by the time you're watching this, he's already been selected, and I would be stunned by this. But here's one maybe upside, is that he gets put in as Secretary of State and then he gets immediately fired by Trump. But the best part is that DeSantis will then get to pick a senatorial replacement in the state of Florida, hand-picked. So DeSantis will get to pick someone specifically to replace Rubio in the Senate. Right. And that would be a great thing.
This might be about Venezuela, and that's disgusting too, man. That's disgusting, man. That means it's going to be more. If they go, this might be about Venezuela. He hates Venezuela, and they won't war with Venezuela. And if you really want to slap China and Russia right now, Venezuela would be the thing to do. Because that's a little war for you. Venezuela going to fight hard. They got a bunch of advanced weapons. But the U.S. need to gain some prestige back. They can't let Russia and Iran kick ass all over the country, and they just talk. And they some gangsters now. Marco Rubio, I'm glad you said that. Marco Rubio getting that job might be all about us going to war with Venezuela and preparing the ground for that.
Him out of the United States Senate. So maybe there's a method to this madness. I'm a glass.
Trump do want that oil. Trump do want that Venezuelan oil, man. He already said it. He want that Venezuelan oil. See, he got that imperialist. He done said it, and I didn't like how he said we're keeping the Syrian oil. You see, we got to deal with this shit. You see, they want that Venezuelan oil, man.
Person.
So then you get him out of the Senate and you fire him from the State Department, and then he's gone forever.
He's gone forever. Little Marco, bye-bye. So Holly Harlot says bullshit analysis. I'm curious if the analysis you're talking about is Rand Paul, me, or anybody, but just clarify, Holly, specifically what your thoughts are on this. And Radar says Trump has not even been sworn in yet, and we're creating drama.
No, we are panicked because we watch the warmongers and have been doing so. So if this panic is unjustified, we'll apologize for that and say, phew, we dodged it.
Marco Rubio is an amazing Secretary of State. He's ended all these wars. It'd be amazing. And again, I will applaud him if that's the case. But his track record on this is pretty awful.
Okay, let's look at another appointment because Trump confirmed this disturbing pick just hours ago. He says he is happy to announce that Congressman Mike Waltz from Florida is appointed to serve as National Security Advisor. He is the first Green Beret to have been elected to Congress, and now he has also previously.
Another person from Florida is kind of cliquish. That presidents do. They see presidents be cliquish. Another person from Florida. He's a Israeli firster too, but it might be hard not to find an Israeli firster. It might be hard not to find somebody who kissing Israel ass. But now this look like Trump is stacking the deck with a few of people who close to him personally in Florida. Rubio, now this man right here, and it's not that Rubio and him are friends, but they are cliques in that. You got your Texas, you got your California branch, the Chicago mob is well known, Barack and them boys, the New York group, you have that in government.
previously served in the White House and the Pentagon. So he is a Republican, Mike Waltz, but he has said many times that his goals are to put Israel first. He once boasted that Donald Trump is the best president for Israel, and now he's national security advisor. So that would be great if he was national security for Israel, but how can you have alliances like this and represent the United States? This was posted just a few months ago during the campaign, and it's worth reminding us where his priorities are.
President Trump has been the best president for Israel and for the Middle East in our lifetime. ISIS defeated, Soleimani dead, Baghdadi dead, Iran was broke, the terrorist proxies were...
Trump didn't defeat no ISIS. That's a lie. Soleimani is a revolutionary hero. He defeated ISIS with Putin.
The terrorist proxies were all complaining they were out of cash. He told China, you keep buying from Iran, you can't buy from us. We've passed sanctions. Schumer won't take them up. You want to talk about election interference? Schumer's interfering with Israel's elections. We have to get President Trump back in as the commander-in-chief. The Jewish community needs it. The world needs it. America needs it. And I just want to take a moment to salute you and thank you. It is
our government is bone paper. See, I told y'all this before Trump got. I told y'all this. I say the problem is all of them kiss Israel ass. That's the fucking problem. At the end of the day, they feel like you can't even get in there without kissing Israel ass. They go overboard. This is overboard. But what's so disgusting about these phonies in the Republican Party? These bastards is pretending to be America first until it comes to Israel. Then they expose their hand. And really, it's Israel first.
It is relatively cheap and easy to yell at the television, argue with your liberal relatives over Thanksgiving, and post on social media. Get out there, roll up your sleeves, donate your time, donate your treasure, and let's take America back. And let's stand shoulder to shoulder with the greatest ally we've ever known, the state of Israel, as we fight evil all over the world. I thank you.
The greatest ally they ever known. How do Britain feel? How do France feel? How do these fucking European countries feel when these people say that type of shit? Israel is the great, and Israel ain't never did shit for the U.S. except bullied and cheated and rip it off and tear it to pieces. I wonder how do them countries feel? Britain, especially. Because Britain and America have a special relationship. You see what I'm saying? They cousins, and they done everything together. It ain't a battle on this planet, nigga. They not shoulder to shoulder in the trenches together. I wonder how Britain feel about that. When you have these phonies sitting there kissing Israel ass, saying the greatest ally ever. What? See, they don't give a damn. Everybody's subservient to them, but they're subservient to Israel. That's disgusting.
Let's fight and win.
Okay, now it's worth noting, of course, he's at a Jewish Republican convention, so he's fundraising from Jewish donors. I get that, right?
Y'all just let me deal. Brother Dwayne, let me deal with Brother Dwayne. Brother Dwayne, welcome back to the show. Don't sit in and pretend like because Trump in power, we got to prepare to deal with the Zionists. Nigga, y'all was just kissing Benjamin Netanyahu ass committing genocide. Genocide Joe. And come out of the killer. So come on, brother. We all know that whoever was in power, we got to free ourselves from these Zionists. So we should be just trying to come together and look at how we're going to deal with that. But it was not no better up under the fucking Democrats. They were committing genocide, Brother Dwayne. So I know y'all going to try to sit here and this y'all going to try to laugh and say, like, see what we did? Bullshit, brother. We didn't want war. But one thing I told you was we're going to tell the truth. Every time Donald Trump is doing some shit we don't like, we're going to discuss it here. We ain't going to hide out and overlook it. But y'all was getting genocide, and you never said a mumbling word about them babies, the Muslim babies getting killed over there, brother. So come on now, let's stop that.
Also, is worth noting that I don't think it's fair to give the United States full credit for defeating ISIS at all. The Iraqis had a large part in that. And so none of us should be victory lapping over ISIS. Also, it is fair to say that Donald Trump was very pro-Israel in his first administration. That is true. He moved the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem while IDF snipers shot Palestinian demonstrators at the time. So is this indicative that we will have more of that? I don't think most people who voted for him wanted more of that. So we need to watch it. Obviously, we need to. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think we're getting to see the conditions of Adelson's donation.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So, wake up, people. Again, we're not. If you want like sycophants for your news outlet, then again, you can, turn on Fox or you can turn on any of the, the conservative stations like that. But we're not going to. We're going to hold these people to account. And if they've gotten money from these sources and that's how they plan to then roll out their agenda on us and put other countries before the United States, I have a problem with it. Mike Waltz also, by the way, sold his company, $25 million defense contracting company. And he made $25 million off of it with this like spotty record on training Afghan security forces. So he, his defense contracting company made millions off of it and sold it. Fine. He also did take a lot of money from APEC. So again, we should hold these politicians to account on where this money comes from and how it drives these politics and puts other countries first instead of the United States of America. Speaking of putting other countries first, the Biden administration has a Ukraine first policy, of course. And of course, the Biden administration right now is freaking out because Trump won. And so they are planning to ask a lot more money for Ukraine before Trump takes office. Now, Trump has said he will end this war and cut off the spigot. There's no love lost between J.D. Vance and Zelensky. I hope that this is the case. This is one of the big reasons to have supported Trump is to end this war in Ukraine and the massive billions of dollars that have been flowing there. But the Biden administration is like, wait a second, we've got to figure out a way to keep the money flowing to Ukraine. So Biden is going to ask for more money for Ukraine. He's going to call on the United States Congress and Donald Trump to not walk away from the Ukraine conflict, the White House is reporting. U.S. President Joe Biden will appeal for continued funding for Ukraine's war effort against Russia, according to RT. And remaining months in office, White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan told CBS News on Sunday about this. The Biden administration intends to use all of the money appropriated by Congress for Ukraine-related spending before Donald Trump takes office in January. Like basically speed up all of the money that's flowing through there. Meanwhile, Antony Blinken is heading to Brussels.
Joe Biden, they want more money out y'all pockets to go to the neo-Nazis. And this is what's so disgusting. Man, the people getting shit kicked out of them. We're going to look at a little bit of that too today. It's so horrible over there that they got to keep saying North Korea because they got to make people believe. It's billions of them over there versus the little old Ukrainians. It's all going to hell. So they know before Joe Biden go, let's steal a couple more billion from the Americans. Y'all can't say no. Unless y'all hit the debt. You can't deny it because they take it straight out your check. See, when you can't get paid till they get paid, that's disgusting. That's why we had to get the Democrats out of there. So they'll say one more big batch and 10% go to the big guy, Joe Biden. 10% more go to him and Hunter Biden so he can get hookers and he can get crack with our money off this Ukraine finesse. Ridiculous, man.
Brussels today for talks with European allies concerned that President-elect Donald Trump could abandon Ukraine in its war with Ukraine. So Blinken is heading to Europe, trying to get them, making sure that they can kind of solidify European support and all the money flowing into Ukraine. And as we were talking as well,
Europe is weak. Europe is weak. They better not ever say nothing ever again to the African nations. The African nations should just slap the hell out of them and then go conquer Europe if they say one word. That's serious business. Europe is weak. Europe is weak. America's a big dog. America, I gotta say, America, you're still a big dog. You can't fuck with Iran and Russia, China, but you're still a big dog. Europe, without America, they gotta give up. What the fuck? All of y'all? You mean to tell me without America, y'all can't do nothing? They can't do nothing, man. You talking about a shock to their countries. You don't ever say nothing to Russia or China or African nation for that fact. Because you've been getting kicked up out of Africa with the help of Russia. See, the lies, we got to tap the history books too. We don't know what happened. These people been lying to us for so long. We don't know who won what, when they won it, who really good fighters. I don't believe them. because I see, well, let's study this case right now. Forget about yesterday and all that. Forget about what happened 100 years ago. Let's take this case right now. You have all those European countries, the great ones, Greece, France, Britain, Spain, you know, Germany, the great Germany, all the Nordic nations, Sweden, Dutch, all of them, throw them in there too. All of those people versus one nation, Russia. You watching it with your own eyes. They getting their ass whooped. And if we say no more money, it all collapse overnight. How is that possible? How is it possible that Britain and France and Germany together cannot defeat Russia and Ukraine? They can't do it. I don't know what they can't do it. And everything is on the line. Come on, man. This is not a good sign for us, America. It's not a good sign for us. A lot of lies been getting told. But the Zionists in control, and the problem is, like Netanyahu said, America is just a big old fat calf that's waiting to get carved up. You see, they got a plan for America. It's not a good one. They antagonizing a bunch of different countries to see us as the problem. People seen Germany as the problem. People seen, like one time, France was the problem. You know, one time Rome was the problem. When the world sees you as the problem, historically, you get dealt with. That's just a fact.
There's a plan to try to make this this aid by Biden Trump-proof, right? In order to keep Trump from rolling it back.
Well, that's one of the things that CNN was reporting over the weekend. I don't exactly know how you would do that. And they've been speaking about this all throughout the election cycle, saying if we lose the White House, we need to make sure that aid to Ukraine continues. How can you possibly do that? Especially because, as we talked about yesterday, most foreign wars are funded on debt and created money out of thin air. So you can't force an entire nation of people to keep taking on debt and creating money out of thin air. There is a mechanism in place to stop that. Whether or not Congress has the appetite for it or President Trump does is another thing entirely.
And just real quick, this is a very odd piece that Moon of Alabama covered. They do amazing journalism there. Why is the Washington Post reporting that a Trump-Putin call took place when it didn't?
Because they liars.
And the Washington Post pushed this story, and it's a fake story. And they pushing that Trump was on the phone with Putin right after he won. And even the Kremlin says that didn't happen. And even at the same time it was happening, Putin was giving a speech, like he was like on television when the alleged phone call took place. Putin said, yeah, I'm open to it. If he wants to call me, I'm happy to have a call with him, but he hasn't happened. The Trump campaign says it hasn't happened. The Washington Post, though, is like reporting this, and they put a whole bunch of numbers in this report about how, you know, he reiterated to Putin that we have 50,000 soldiers in Europe kind of ready to go. This is like a piece of like war propaganda from the Washington Post. It's really, really bizarre. And even like the Ukrainian government says it didn't happen. So like, where did this story come from? How did this get planted in the Washington Post? It's like a very curious story. Anyway, I encourage you all to read it. Moon of Alabama does a great job on that, but I wanted to drop that in because it's just very mysterious why they would do that. Maybe not so much.
You're surprised that the Washington Post is lying?
It's like a CIA.
Are you new here?
I mean, it's a CIA front group, right? So it's the New York Times. So they just drop these stories in like, hey, we want to remind you, Putin, we've got 50,000 soldiers there, and Trump's very, bullish still on Ukraine, and we're not giving up. We're not giving up on Ukraine just yet. Where did this come from? There was no phone call. Anyway.
Okay. Well, the press is calling Melania Trump rude because she turned down an invitation to go for tea, the First Lady's tea. Now, it's a longstanding tradition that the incoming First Lady is invited to tea by the outgoing First Lady. That did not happen in 2020. It did happen in 2016. Now, apparently, Jill Biden has extended the invitation through her surrogates. I don't know how personal it was. And Melania Trump doesn't want to go. And so what do you think? Is that rude or is that fair? I wouldn't want to go. I don't think I would enjoy myself. According to sources, she turned it down because the Biden administration launched a raid on her house. And recall that we had reports that her personal closet was something that they went through extensively. And she does not forgive them
went through the lady lingerie.
Although I said on the show, I would love to see what is in Melania's closet because her wardrobe's fabulous. But again, I should not have the right to do that. And the Biden administration probably should not have done it either. According to a source from the New York Post, this is the source saying she ain't going. Jill Biden's husband authorized the FBI snooping through her underwear drawer. The Bidens are disgusting.
Come on, man.
So
she
that
woman didn't have no classified documents.
And so we'll see. It remains to be seen how much she wants to do this time around because the press was just terrible to her. The future First Lady, she expressed some resentment over the raid, saying it made her very angry, and she called it an invasion of her privacy.
The raid on Mar-a-Lago, the house manager texts you and says the FBI is outside the house. They had access to my bedroom, closets, office, and rummaged through my personal items. Even searched Barron's room, you say. So how invasive was that? Did it make you angry? How did you feel?
Yeah, it made me angry. Yes, invasion of privacy. And the way it was done I was really surprised.
And you told your house manager, just leave it, don't touch anything, don't put it back. You wanted to see it for your own eyes. With your own eyes? What did it look like when you walked back in your house that had been raided?
I saw unpleasant stuff that nobody wants to see it. And you get angry because, nobody should be putting up with that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Some person, I don't even know who or how many people, they went through my stuff.
Yeah. So a judge has dismissed this case we know about over this raid that happened. And she is clearly not over it. And so you have to think about, how would you feel if you felt like this was a political attack on your husband and your own personal items had been gone through? Also, what's a house manager? I want one of those.
That's me. It's this guy. Okay. The house manager. Clean up your crap. I think that's the kids. Put those school bags away. Pick up your shoes off the. It's a house manager.
It's the modern term for butler. They no longer use butler. It's a house manager.
Oh, okay. House manager.
That's cool. Like a house elf.
Need to get me one of those. All right. Well, one of the enduring mysteries of this election is what happened to Biden's 81 million votes. Keep this up on the screen if you would, Philip, because take a look at this. Okay. Kamala Harris got the same amount of votes roughly as Barack Obama did back in 2012 and Hillary Clinton. But Joe Biden blew them all away. I mean, it was not even close, right? 81 million. He's the greatest president in American history, apparently, right? The popularity of Biden was just off the charts. You could feel it, right? When you were at the shopping mall, everyone was talking about Biden. Everywhere you went, you couldn't even sit down and have a meal because the excitement of Biden, it was just overwhelming. So where did all of those votes go this time? I'm very curious about this, and I hope we get to the bottom of those missing 20 or so million votes that never went to Kamala Harris, but somehow voted for the excitement of Biden during a pandemic, by the way. Mail-in votes. You didn't have to leave your home. It was so convenient to vote for Biden. So where did they all go? And why were they held back this time? That's what I want to know. Is it because it was too big? It was too big of a turnout? That they realized there's no way we can pull this off. They realized there's absolutely no way we can shove in these additional votes here because no one's going to vote for Kamala. Let's be honest. So Congressman Jordan wants to know exactly where those millions of votes went. Watch as Dana Bash tries to corner him on like election fraud and all of these questions about it. And he just brings up the simple question, where do these millions of votes go?
But voting fraud this time, it seems to me that Republicans claim voting fraud and election integrity when you lose and not when you win.
No, I mean, again, as I said before, this election, I think, was the greatest political comeback we've ever seen. I mean, he did something that even Teddy Roosevelt couldn't do, for goodness sake. And and the country.
But you think it was a free and fair election?
No. This election, you just interviewed the Latino, I think, restaurant owner or a restaurant worker, and he said he was tired of all the woke stuff. This election was real simple. You had back-to-back administrations. We got something we very seldom get in American history, American politics. Back-to-back administrations now running for the top job, and people could do a direct comparison. And they said, we like what we had under President Trump versus.
But last time around,
we like the safe streets versus the record
last
crime.
time around, your leader claimed that there were problems with
secure
fraud.
border versus the open border.
Right. Those are policies.
That's what this election was about.
That's totally fair. But last time around, it wasn't so much about the policy differences or the personality differences. There were false claims about election fraud when Donald Trump lost. This time, Donald Trump won, and you think the election was free and fair. You see there's a little bit of a...
No, I think the Democrats got to ask, why did we go from getting 81 million to getting 70 million? What happened to those 10 million people? Maybe they needed... Maybe it's not smart to run an election where you have no vision, no record to run on.
Do you believe that the
2024 names?
Do you believe that the 2024 election was free and fair?
I do.
And why was it different from 2020 when he lost? Is that the only difference?
No, there were concerns about 2020 with all the mail-in voting that happened. You know, Pennsylvania had like 2-point-something million mail-in ballots come in without any signature verification, which was required under Pennsylvania statute. So there were all kinds of concerns with how the 2020 election was carried out. But
there was absolutely
the biggest question Democrats need to be asking: what happened to the 10 million voters that Joe Biden got that didn't come out for Kamala Harris? A bunch of them. President Trump's numbers were right up where they were in 2020, but the Democrats were much lower. I think it's because they had no vision, no record to run on, and they just wanted to call everyone names. Turns out when you tell people, oh, you're fascist, racist, deplorable garbage, they don't like that. And then when you use lawfare to go after their candidate, they don't like that either. Well, that's why they came out. So on top of the economy, on top of the price of gas, on top of the inflation, that's why they voted for President Trump.
We're out of time.
Yeah.
Okay, two things. Why did she have him on if she doesn't want him to talk?
Right.
Second thing, that's an absolutist argument. There is fraud in every election. Full stop. Why does the Justice Department have 90 field offices to investigate and prosecute this? Do those lawyers just sit there like twiddling their thumbs and playing solitaire? What do? They prosecute fraud that happens every election. So you can't say there's only fraud in the ones that we like, and we're going to deny the ones that Republicans are talking about. What is at issue is what fraud do we pay attention to, and do we catch and we prosecute and allow? That's it. So she's asking really ignorant questions. That's a really stupid interview.
Maybe you could, if you wanted to, you could buy her brand new book. Donna Bash has a brand new book out.
Thank you.
It's called America's Deadliest Election. Dana Bash. Could you imagine reading a book by Dana Bash?
No, I would. I read books by Rachel Maddow. I read books by people that I don't like all the time. I don't want to miss what their arguments are.
Side note on the CNN.
But I would get it at the library. I'm not going to give her any money.
Side note on the CNN piece, reports today that CNN is laying off tons of people, and so is MSNBC, like high profile people. Is Caitlin Collins out of a job? Anderson Cooper?
No.
So no, I see multiple reports, like a lot of their star talent, their stars, because their viewership is just plummeted. No one wants to watch their crap anymore. So they're going to just have to lay off a whole bunch of people. Anyway, MSNBC and CNN, that's reportedly today. Go ahead, David.
Is her book about the Trump election? Which election is that about? The most dangerous one? Just out of curiosity.
It was about the election of 1872, and it's a cautionary tale about the election of 1872 and how we should make sure that we don't have that similar civil war in the United States because of that type of a leader, of course.
Oh, anyway. You would think that someone who wrote a book about election fraud would know that it happens every election. You would think. Okay. All right. I'm annoyed by that. Oprah Winfrey says that reports that she was paid $1 million to endorse Kamala Harris are, quote, not true. But you can look at the FEC website, the Federal Elections Commission website, and you can find that actually her production company, Harpo Productions, did receive $1 million. This you can find all on your own. Now, here is Oprah being asked by TMZ just yesterday, and she was asked, hey, are you super excited about the election? And she says, I'm not going to talk about that. Do you still support Kamala Harris? I don't want to talk about that. And then she said, and then the reporter asks, well, what about reports that you received $1 million? And she says, not true. Now, those charges those two charges of $500,000 no doubt relate to the Unite for America live stream, which she did in Michigan to rally Michigan voters to vote for Kamala Harris. It didn't work. Michigan went for Donald Trump handily, but she still had celebrities like Jennifer Lopez, Meryl Streep, Julia Roberts, Chris Rock, and Ben Stiller all shilling for Kamala Harris. Now, of course, Oprah has a big production company. People work for her who deserve to get paid. Also, let's take a look at her setting up for this live stream. The set clearly is expensive and she has to pay her staff. So let's think about whether or not what we see here is worth $1 million.
We're just hours away from 8 p.m. Eastern time, where we're in Michigan and we have 1,000 screens everywhere you see those little heads there. And 400 people in the audience for what we are hoping is going to be one great big giant voter rally. So getting people registered, getting people inspired, getting people fired up to vote on November 5th with Kamala Harris here as our special guest. If you know somebody, tell somebody, come to the voting rally in Michigan on virtual.
Come to the rally on virtual. Man, y'all are finesses. Greek freaks is on virtual. See, they got virtual friends. They don't got no real partners in real life.
Oh, some live seats, some people live all over the country. Thank you so much. See you at 8 p.m. Eastern time.
All right, David and Philip. Yeah, I want to ask your. I want to ask your.
Technical knowledge.
Yeah, because you guys set up streaming sets for a living. So do you think that was, I want to hear what you have to say, but do you think that was about $1 million production?
Oh, probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
okay.
Thousands of screens and all that stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But what I would point out how
when she
racist
said
that statement was.
Oh,
go ahead, Philip.
Oh no! When she said 1,000 screens, at first I was like, "What the hell is she talking about?" I was like jumbotrons or something, but no, she was talking about the. Sorry, my phone rang. She was talking about all the virtual ins, but still, yeah, I could see $1 million for that.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, David.
And she called her Kamala Harris. That's racist, isn't it? Like, didn't we?
Right. You intentionally mispronounce her name. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, she did. You're right. So, okay, that was not a free endorsement of Kamala Harris. That was a business deal for her production company, and it didn't work. It turns out that people in the districts don't vote with people in the Capitol. That's another Hunger Games reference that I hope you get, because yeah, that was all people in the Capitol telling people in the districts how to, and it's hilarious how much that failed. I'm loving it. Now, Kamala Harris is being excoriated online for the state that she is leaving her campaign finances in. Now, in his book, Ron Paul wrote this, his book, End of the Fed. He said this about campaign debt. He said there was no campaign debt in any of his campaigns because he had a firm rule: never end a campaign with debt. If you lose the election, the debt becomes yours, not the campaign. So are we taking bets whether or not Kamala Harris will personally take that 20 million deficit on her own balance sheet? I'm going to say not, especially since she didn't put herself into that campaign anyway. It was some kind of globalist forces that issued a coup against Joe Biden. So do you think that maybe she'll split it with Tim Walz? Will she do this upstanding thing that Ron Paul has always done? One popular TikTok user says that we should troll celebrities to get that money back. Watch.
So Kamala Harris campaign is in $20 million in the hole. This is after the campaign had raised over $1 billion. And y'all out here having all of these temper tantrums, cutting off your hair, no sex, no kids, no marriage for a woman that couldn't even manage her own campaign funds. Now just imagine if she would have been president and how she would have managed taxpayers' money. We saw how y'all was so proud in raising all of this money earlier this summer for her campaign, breaking records. Y'all were bragging about it all over the social media platforms just for her to just squander it all away. I think we know where all of that money went. It was a lot of celebrities that came out and showed out for her for some money. They was getting paid. So apparently a lot of vendors haven't been paid just yet because they ain't got no money. And while there's a civil war that is erupting in the Democratic Party right now, they've been blaming one another for the loss of Kamala Harris. They've been blaming Biden, Pelosi. Obama pretty much is, got on a jet. Nobody knows where he's at, hasn't said anything. These people still want their money to get paid. So instead, Trump tweets out how we ended our campaign with plenty of money, so we'll foot the bill of Kamala Harris' campaign. But y'all say he's a racist. So instead of y'all wasting all of y'all energy over here and doing all this crazy stuff, why don't y'all step in for the little guys, since y'all say that this is, the party of the working class people and the party of the little guy? That's what y'all say the Democrats are. And ask these celebrities that she has given all this money to perform for y'all or do a 4-minute speech for y'all, give the money back to the campaign so that they can pay the little guys. Why don't you do that? Go troll the celebrities. This is just crazy, but y'all keep on having your little temper tantrums and everything instead of focusing and looking at the real problems why people did not vote for her. And this was one of them. So deal with it. Trump is your president. All right. Y'all have a good one.
Okay. So her TikTok name, if you want to follow her, is Seavest Gardens 22. Now, Oprah is in fact getting trolled and she doesn't like it, it turns out, but I'm sure she will be back for another candidate in 4 years. She very much feels like she sold you Obama. She's wondering why she wasn't able to sell you Kamala Harris, but she'll try again. So don't get excited.
We reported earlier today that CNN
I feel as though I'm one of the only voices speaking out. And if we do not confront the lessons of election night, it's going to happen over and over again. We're going to keep losing. If we don't recognize a rightward shift of America, we are also going to lose. We have to have a careful financial accounting of what exactly happened. How did we possibly blow through $1 billion in just 3 months? It's just astounding, not just to me, but to many of my fellow donors. I've been speaking with them on an hourly basis. People are just completely shocked and just craving answers. A lot of them are sending me messages of support, asking me to stay the course and to keep asking. And we just haven't really gotten any explanation from the campaign as to what happened. And I say this, it pains me to say this. This is very hard for me to say because these are my friends. These are my, these are people that I've worked with for a long time. But if we don't have any accountability, how could we possibly move forward in an effective way, not only to serve this party, but serve our country?
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Just when you thought that Kamala Harris could not be humiliated even more than she already has been humiliated after she lost in a landslide to Trump, we have more stories coming out about how she spent her campaign funds. Okay, a lot of people are asking questions about how in the hell did her campaign end up $20 million in debt despite raising $1 billion, over $1 billion, and they ended up $20 million in debt, and they have nothing to show for it outside of losing in a landslide to former President Trump. Yeah, a whole lot of people are upset. They're mad. They're asking questions because the Kamala campaign is begging for more money, right? She is basically coming out and saying, well, we're broke and we need more money, right? Please send us some more money so that we can pay our bills. Okay. Vendors aren't getting paid. Allegedly staff, they're not getting paid. We need more money from the very gullible individuals that sent her money in the first place. Take a look.
At the same time, got to pay attention to the campaign that flopped big, and that was Kamala Harris. And it appears the biggest flop not only was just the vote total, but it actually was a lot of the money decisions that were made inside the campaign. So we have curated now a list. It appears that the Kamala Harris campaign, despite raising over $1 billion, still ended up some $20 million or so in debt and is now currently currently fundraising, still asking people for money after she lost. Let's put this up there on the screen. So this is an example of one of the emails that she's been sending out now. She says, first and foremost, we want to acknowledge the fear, the confusion, the sadness many of you are feeling at this moment. For others, you may be looking for something meaningful and important to channel your emotions. If that's you, then we're asking you to make a donation to the Democratic Party today. Here's why this is important. As you read this, there are U.S. Senate and House races that are too close to call or within the margin of recounts. They all need your help to get across the finish line. So can you please rush a contribution to the Harris Fight Fund program today? Does anyone want to name like a high-profile race other than Pennsylvania that's not in recount territory? That's right. So this is a grift. Let's all be honest. Let's put this up there on the screen from Newsweek. It appears that there is significant amount of debt.
Grifting, going out the door, grifting. They say Trump a grifter. Is she grifting right there?
In the Harris-Waltz campaign, enough so, possibly up to the sum of some $20 million. And people are starting to ask major questions about how some of that got spent.
Yeah. So you seen that, you heard that. Okay. So yesterday we talked about the bombshell report that came out about Kamala Harris paying Oprah's company $1 million for her endorsement interview that she did with Oprah, in which it was very scripted, and Oprah essentially was just slobbing, glazing Kamala Harris. And a lot of people criticized Kamala and Oprah because people were thinking that, hey, you know, why is it that these celebrities, all of these celebrities are coming out and supporting Kamala Harris? Well, it turns out a lot of these celebrities were being paid. Now, you would think that if these celebrities were endorsing Kamala because they feel like their rights are under attack and that democracy's on the line, they would need to be paid in order to do so. But apparently they needed to be paid, right? Those endorsements came with a price, okay? And we have to talk about another bombshell report about Kamala Harris allegedly paying for an endorsement and a softball interview to go along with it, because apparently her campaign gave $500,000 to Al Sharpton's nonprofits weeks before glowing interview with the MSNBC host. Now, again, this one is really, really, really bad, okay? Because Oprah, while a celebrity, everybody knows she's left-leaning. She's not like an actual like civil rights Democrat Party activist propagandist like Al Sharpton, at least not overtly, okay? Al Sharpton is overtly a Democrat Party activist, and for her to be paying him for an endorsement is really, really, really sad.
Happy 70th birthday, Rev. Happy birthday. I celebrate the day you were born. You have been, over all of your years, such an extraordinary leader. You are a voice of truth, a voice of conscience, a voice of practicality around what we must address and what we can do. And I thank you so much for your friendship. Happy, happy birthday.
I have to ask you about your opponent. He used a very ugly term about you last night, using the S word as vice president. And how do you react to this kind of street talk from someone who wants to be president again, that was president? I've known you a long time, and I know you have thick skin, but I'm not asking you as a person, because I know you're used to that. But what does it do, in your opinion, to the standards we're setting for our young people all over the country when we're using this kind of locker room street talk about an opponent for president of the United States? Shut up.
So the American people deserve so much better. That's how I come at it. And to your point, the president of the United States must set a standard, not only for our nation, but understanding the standard that we as a nation must set for the world. You know, we as representing the United States of America walk into rooms around the world with the earned and self-appointed authority to talk about the importance of democracy, rule of law, and have been thought of as a role model, imperfect though we may be, but a role model of what it means to be committed to certain standards, including international rules and norms, but also standards of decorum. And what we see in my opponent, a former president of the United States, really is, it demeans the office And I have said, and I'm very clear about this, Donald Trump should never again stand behind the seal of the President of the United States. He has not earned the right. He's not earned the right. And that's why he's going to lose.
Yeah, so clearly that take from Kamala Harris did not age well. And Al Sharpton did not disclose that he was paid $500,000, or his nonprofit was paid $500,000, which means that he basically got paid. And I'm going to show you guys how this works, right, in regards to Al Sharpton actually benefiting from this. But before we get into that, he didn't disclose that payment. MSNBC didn't disclose that payment, which shows you how much of a propaganda outlet MSNBC is, right? They claim to be a news network, and yet they're having interviews with the Democrat presidential nominee in which the interviewer was paid off beforehand to do the interview, something that you would think should be disclosed to the audience that, hey, this is paid propaganda, that we paid Al Sharpton to sit here and just allow Kamala Harris to say whatever and to not push back. No. So I want to go ahead and read more about this donation to Al Sharpton's nonprofit and then go from there. Vice President Kamala Harris' presidential campaign delivered $500,000 in donations to Al Sharpton's nonprofit organization just prior to a glowing interview with the candidate on MSNBC. Harris's campaign gave two payments of $250,000 to the National Action Network on September 5th and October 1st, according to campaign finance records first reported by the Washington Free Beacon and confirmed by DailyMail.com. Sharpton publicly backed Harris after Biden endorsed her to succeed him in his re-election campaign. After Sharpton's organization received donations from Harris, he got a coveted sit-down interview with her just 2 weeks before the election. Now, again, remember, Kamala Harris has been selective in regards to who she wanted to sit down with. A lot of these networks wanted to sit down with Kamala Harris. They wanted to interview her, but she was saying no. And apparently, she was so afraid of doing interviews that when it was time for her to finally do a real interview or to start doing real interviews because she had to, she decided that, hey, you know what? I'll just pay you to do a softball interview, right? I'll pay you not to ask me any real questions, which again, now that opens up the door to question all of these softball interviews that Kamala Harris had done, right, before the election, because the only real tough interview that she did was with Fox News. She may have done one more tough interview, but outside of that, all of these other outlets, her interviews were, again, straight softball, even though there was a lot of criticism that should have been levied against Kamala Harris. There was a lot of questions that should have been asked, but those questions weren't asked, again, because some of these interviews were paid. Again, like the Oprah interview, now the Al Sharpton interview. Yeah, it is becoming very, very, very clear that Kamala's whole campaign was a Ponzi scheme to get her rich friends and celebrities paid off the back of the liberals that unwisely sent money to her campaign, right? I mean, that's essentially what is happening here, okay? A whole bunch of people got paid from these donations that were sent to Kamala Harris by people who believed that she could beat Trump when the campaign knew that they did not have a good chance of beating Trump. They knew that they were losing, but they, along with the liberal media and the pollsters, systemically tried to make it seem like Kamala Harris was doing better than she was against Trump, even though, again, all of them really knew that she wasn't doing that well and that she was going to lose the election. This is probably one of the biggest scams in the history of American politics. Let's keep it 100. Kamala's campaign was a huge scam. Huge scam. Harris appeared on Sharpton's MSNBC Politics Nation show on October 20th, exclusively aired on the cable network. Donald Trump should never again stand behind the seal of President of the United States. He has not earned the right, and that's why he's going to lose, Harris said. Yeah, so Al Sharpton nor MSNBC disclosed the donations to Sharpton's organization. I think that it should have been disclosed, but apparently not, right? MSNBC, once again, proving their propaganda outlet. And this is how Al Sharpton got paid. Okay, this is how he got paid. Sharpton reportedly earns a 7-figure salary from MSNBC and is paid handsomely by National Action Network, which he founded in 1991. The nonprofit paid Sharpton around $650,000 in 2021 out of $7 million in revenues and spent another $940,000 that year for, quote, transportation services to the private jet firm Apollo Jets and the limousine company Carry International. Okay, so I want you guys to understand. Kamala Harris donated $500,000 to Al Sharpton's nonprofit that, at least according to the 2021 numbers, pays him more than $500,000 a year, right? So that donation in of itself basically covered Sharpton's salary from that nonprofit. And on top of that, again, that money is used to chauffeur around Al Sharpton in private jets and limousines. Again, this is money that comes from the people, right? From the people to help Kamala Harris's campaign. And she's out here using that money in order to get her celebrity friends rich, right? That's what she's doing. And she blew $1 billion. And they all knew that she didn't have a good chance of winning. They all knew that she was losing to Trump. This is incredible. It really is. This is a huge story. First, the Oprah discovery, and now Al Sharpton. And again, this is sad because Al Sharpton is a Democrat propagandist. Guys, how bad must Kamala Harris be to feel the need to pay Al Sharpton's nonprofit $500,000 or to pay Oprah $1 million? Right? That's the crazy part about this. Like, think about this. Al Sharpton already is a Democrat Party propagandist. He's already anti-Trump. So it's like, why do you need to pay him for endorsement? That's what makes it even worse. Why do you need to pay him for an interview? Because he should be willing to do it regardless. You're the vice president right now, and you're the presidential nominee for the Democrat Party. Why are you paying Al Sharpton for an interview? Because her whole campaign was a Ponzi scheme. It was a Ponzi scheme. It was a scam in order to launder money to rich liberal elites. That's what it was. If anything, you should be thinking that people like Oprah and Al Sharpton, who are rich, these are rich individuals, they should be donating to Kamala's campaign, not the other way around. Kamala was donating to them. Either Kamala was so bad that she had to pay for these endorsements, okay, or her whole campaign was a scam from the beginning. It was a huge scam to raise money from foolish liberals who believed that Kamala Harris could beat Trump, Trump-deranged liberals who had hope that, oh, well, Kamala can take down Trump after Biden dropped out of the race. But the campaign and all the elites knew that she actually couldn't win, right? Which, again, would explain why she would spend money so recklessly, because it wasn't really about trying to win in the first place.
I saw that yesterday. That's the reason she $20 million in debt. They was making sure, because they money laundering. They was putting the money in and giving it to themselves in all kind of different ways. All that, $1 million to Oprah, rappers got it. $1 billion gone, man. They laundered it to themselves. Forget all that window dressing. Oprah, nigga. It's some small hats got 50 million here, 75 million there. $1 billion is gone.
They were trying to create the appearance of a competent campaign that had a lot of momentum, that had a lot of energy. Everybody loves Kamala and everybody supporting her and blah, 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 while siphoning off money, again, to the rich elites and the celebrities that were supporting the campaign, right? But they were actually getting paid. They weren't actually giving money to Kamala Harris. No. That money was coming from the people and some of the rich, naive donors, right? But you know what they say? A liberal and his money shall soon depart, right? Or a fool and his money shall soon depart. I mean, at this point, there's no difference between a fool and a liberal, right? No difference whatsoever, because you have to be a damn fool to donate to Kamala Harris. This is incredible. It really is. I can't, paying Al Sharpton? Really? Really? You paid Al Sharpton for an interview? Al Sharpton. Really? And he didn't help her get any black votes at all. Didn't help her at all. In fact, he might have lost her some votes, to be honest with you. So it's going to be fascinating to see more of the revelations that come out in regards to who Kamala paid, who got rich off of these campaign funds. And I really do hope that liberals see this, Democrat voters see this stuff, and they realize how much of a scam her campaign was. And honestly, they should think twice before donating to Democrats ever again. I don't think I will ever donate to a party that decided to blow money this badly, this recklessly, and ended up losing in a landslide. This is insane. And now she's out here begging for money to pay off the campaign debt that she incurred from paying off people like Oprah and Al Sharpton, right? Again, it's insane. It really is. Nobody should be giving her campaign a dime. Okay, her campaign should not be getting a dime, considering the nonsense that they pay money for a completely fake and artificial scripted campaign that never had any momentum from the beginning. So, hey, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back. I am Van, and we are all the LFR family. Thank you so much for clicking play. And if you're feeling extra generous, feel free to share this bad boy. But the only cost of admission for my live streams is to simply hit the like button. Hit the like button, hit the like button, hit the like button. I'm talking about smash it. Knock the hell out of it. Right? I've got a couple of things that we want to talk about. First, giving honor to God. I want to say I'm thankful that you guys pulled up. I'm thankful that you're in good health. Hopefully, you thank God yourself. When you walk past the mirror, hopefully you showed yourself some love. If you haven't already, make sure you do so before you go to sleep. All right? That's your homework. Okay. We got a couple of videos that we're going to go over. I know you saw the thumbnail. Pretty wild thumbnail. I picked that thumbnail because Jojo, my son, he liked it. But we're going to start this bad boy off with President Joe Biden. Oh my God. Did he just now threaten a reporter? Okay, I don't think that he meant to. I think that this was Joe's way of being funny, maybe. But it sounds to me like he threatened her. Like she asked him a question, and his question back to her was like, okay, since you want to be smart, how about I knock the hell out of you? It's just ridiculous. Anyway, before we move forward, hit that like button. Let's go ahead and jump into it. This is absolutely hilarious, this very first one. And then we're going to jump into the main reason why you're here, man. Love y'all. Make sure you hit that like button.
President Biden, do you think that you can get a hostage deal by the end of your term?
I think you can get hit in the head by a camera behind you. All right.
I don't think y'all heard him. Okay, so she asked him, look at this right here. She asked him, do you think you can get a hostage deal done by the end of your term? He responded, do you think that you can get hit in the head by the camera behind you? Okay, reason why I said, do you think that possibly was a threat? Because all he had to say, the only thing he had to do was wink at the cameraman like, look, you know what to do when I wink. I already told you what to do when I wink. Whenever I wink at you, you knock somebody that whoever's closest to you, you knock them upside the head with your camera. Listen to this, bro. I don't know why he thought that would be funny. President Joe Biden this dude is off his rocker, man. I'm gonna play it one more time. I need y'all to listen. Just listen up. I'm gonna try to turn it up and everything, but I need y'all to listen to what he's saying, bro. Why would he even say this, man? This is absolutely nuts.
President Biden, do you think that you can get a hostage deal by the end of your term?
I think you can get hit in the head by a camera behind you. All right. Thank you all.
And then he acknowledged her. He threw out that joke that seemed like a threat. And then he moved on and said, thank you all. You know, get the hell out of my office. I want to take a nap. My Jell-O is coming in. I see my nurse out there. Come on, move out the way, please. Let her bring in that Jell-O. Please move out the way. Today is strawberry, and strawberry is my favorite flavor. Come on, she bringing in my Jell-O. I said, get out my office. Come on, please bring me my Jell-O. Bring my Jell-O, please. He said, do you think that you can get hit in the head with a camera that's standing behind you? Do you think that I won't let somebody choke you right now? Huh? Do you think I'm going to allow you to ask me stupid questions in front of all these people? Do you think I'm going to answer your question after I done went pee-pee on myself while I sit here I gotta get up and you ask me all these questions? If you don't shut your up. I know I'm being a little animated right now, but it went something like that. It went something like that. Okay, now let's get into the main reason why we're here. Okay, I ran across this video, right? 2 videos. We're going to play 2. Make sure you stick around for both of them and hit the like button if you haven't already. The very first one is a young brother that I ran across, and I don't know his name. I apologize. I really don't. I tried to find his name on X. But this brother was dropping jewels, and he was talking to all the people who voted for Kamala, all of you Democrats, and he's keeping it real as a mug. Just going to let you know there's going to be some colorful language in this part of the video. And then we're going to go to the Don Lemon video where he's talking about President Trump is requesting reparations for white people. That's what he's saying. And I'm going to break that down for you as well. And President Trump did not say reparations. He said restitution, but it was one word. It was one word in that entire monologue or that entire video from Trump that I'm also going to show you guys that Don Lemon is pointing out that made him say the stupid mess that he ended up saying. But first, let's check this out right here. Guys, again, it's going to be some colorful words. It's going to be some colorful words in this, okay? Just let you know that. Just putting it out there. Don't be cussing at me because I'm going to cuss you back if you feel like you're going to be cussing at me. And make sure you answer the poll that's in there. Hit the like button, guys. All right, let's get to it. This is wild.
The way y'all liberals are backtracking on everything y'all say or do, y'all make a fucked up comment and then try to, no, I only meant it this way. I wasn't talking about this. I only meant that. That's why y'all lost the election. Y'all have no ability to accountability. Y'all don't know how to admit when you're wrong. You don't know how to take advice. You don't know when your ideas are batshit fucking stupid. I swear to God, black, white, Spanish makes no goddamn difference. Y'all rainbow warriors, y'all liberals will never win another fucking election in this country. Y'all want to unite under everything except what the fucking Democratic Party should be uniting under, which is basic civil rights, helping out the poor, uplifting the community, equality. Instead, y'all are on this fucking let's push abortion and fucking homosexuality shit. And you don't realize nobody's standing behind you with that bullshit. We're the Latino men, we're the black men. We're not fucking gonna fucking support somebody that's gonna kill our children. And y'all can go ahead and justify and sanctimoniously rationalize this shit in your head however you want. That's not gonna fucking change. And all y'all motherfuckers sitting out here talking about, well, all y'all can do is repeat talking points that y'all saw on the same fucking network that told you Kamala Harris was gonna win the election. Y'all are still repeating bullshit that was bullshit before the bitch got lost the election. And now you're repeating the same bullshit after the bitch loses the election.
Now, he's only halfway done. I told y'all that it was going to be some colorful language. If you're feeling offended, walk away from the screen for like 2 more minutes and then come back for the conversation. Just putting it out there. But sometimes you got to speak like this to get across to some of those demons on the other side who don't understand logic. All right? Okay, let's get back to it. Again, I told y'all, I warned y'all, don't be coming to me.
I swear to fucking God, y'all liberals will never win another election in this goddamn country. You Democrats will never win another fucking election. Y'all motherfuckers might as well switch to the Green Party or something, because you fucking bastardize whatever the Democrats are going to be. Y'all are more racist than the old school fucking Republicans were. The shit y'all have said in the past few days, fuck all of you. You fucking angry ass, bitter bitch, hair hat motherfuckers. You fucking homosexual, buck broken, now want to fucking turn to the colonizer motherfuckers. You fake ass white liberals want to talk about, well, it's going to be easier on me. Yeah, because you're a white boy and you're going to fucking go back into your white privilege. That shit ain't surprising. Most motherfucking black men in this fucking country saw through the bullshit that is the liberal Democrat Party from jump. That's why you've never had our back. You've never had your back, because we can recognize pussies from a mile away. And the Democrat Party is full of a bunch of them. That's a fucking shame. Shit, I'm watching on this goddamn app now. Y'all motherfuckers backpedaling. And it wasn't Kamala's house. She ran a great campaign. And then never mind the fact for the past several months, motherfuckers said her campaign sucks donkey balls. But no, it was a good campaign. That's why she fucking lost. Over $1 billion raised by you dumb hair hat bitches, and this bitch is still $20 million in debt. Thank God she didn't get a hold of the goddamn country's purse strings. Bitch would have us living underneath the bridge while fucking homosexuals dance around in the rain, fondling themselves. The goddamn party of mental fucking illness.
He said what he said. We look at what's going on right now. It literally seems like that's the party of mental illness. You can think whatever you want to think, be what you want to be, and everyone else around you have to play by your rules or they can be canceled. I just saw on CNN, they were having a conversation. It was like 5 people on the panel. And one gentleman, who I believe is a Republican, he's a conservative correspondent, he said, people don't want to have boys in the same bathroom, or people don't want to have boys in the same bathroom or playing the same sports teams as their daughters. And he pissed the guy off that was on the panel who called him transphobic for saying that boys shouldn't be in the same bathroom with girls. And Abby Smith, the CNN host, jumped on the side of the guy that got offended and called him a transphobe and tried to correct this guy, Michael, I believe his name is, and tell him that he needed to fix his language. This is what we're dealing with here, all right? If we don't play by their rules, we are the ones that's demonized. That's what he's talking about. So they try to reach out to the least of these, plant all of these fears in their heart, saying that you're different. Trump don't like different. The MAGA Republicans don't like different. Conservatives don't like different. They hate you, and they want you to go back into your hole, or they don't want to take care of you. They don't want to provide you with insurance. They don't care if you live or die. They don't want you in school with their children. They don't want you to be loved. They want you to feel bad about yourselves, which is completely against everything we stand for. Because for anybody that I know who put God and family before anything and country before anything, one thing we do is we respect everybody. We respect and we love people from the LGBTQAI plus community. But we also feel like we shouldn't be forced to play your games that you want us to play. This guy has spoken it out clearly. The same party that claimed that Trump and all of the MAGA Republicans and conservatives who support Trump, or the black people who are now supporting Trump, they claim that we are all crazy, that we are racist. But now when we look at them, they are putting videos out saying, oh, Hispanics, y'all want to vote for Trump now? Y'all vote for Trump? Well, guess what? I can't wait for y'all to get deported. I can't wait for you and your entire families to get deported, almost as if it's only the Hispanics who are the immigrants. And we know that that is completely outside of the truth. We know that for a fact, but they are showing their true colors. They're saying, since you didn't vote for us, F y'all. We hope you get deported. As a matter of fact, we're going to call ICE on you and your family. That's what they're saying. They're also saying, and these are the black ones, we heard Joy Reid said, we've seen black women all over the internet say it, we've seen them say it on the View. White women, they are hating on white women now because they're saying that white women, you claim to be our ally, you claim to love black people, you claim to love the LGBTQAI plus community, you claim to love women's rights and our reproduction system, but you didn't vote for us enough that we won. They're trying to put the blame on everybody else but themselves. They're putting the blame on everybody else but Kamala. We already know Kamala was not that great of a politician. They put her out there before she was ready. They acted as if they put a democracy before anything, but they didn't even allow the people to pick the person or vote for the person that will run for their party. That's not democracy at all. As a matter of fact, they shut up and moved to the side. The current sitting president tried to keep him in a corner. As a matter of fact, they sent him on vacation. Biden, take your ass to the beach. Go to Delaware or something. Go get on the beach. Go sit down in the sand. I don't care what you do. Just get out of our way. We got some stuff to do. You go over there. We're going to give you some Lego blocks and some puzzles, and we're going to give you some cards and some ice cream. What else you want? Huh? Some Depends. What else you want? Whatever we give you, some water guns, I don't care. Just take Jill with you. You get the hell on, and we're going to run it from here. Okay, we got it from here. They were showing their disdain for the whole movement. Nancy Pelosi had a big part in it. Barack Obama had a big part in it. And they are now trying to blame everybody but themselves. And then they raised $1 billion and blew it. They paid Beyonce more than $10 million just to speak at a rally. She didn't even perform. She showed up with Kelly Rowland in that goofy ass suit. And I love me some Kelly Rowland. I didn't want to see her in that big old juke suit, that big old Eddie Murphy life suit that she had on. Don't nobody want to see that. She walked up in there with some Commanders shoulder pads underneath her suit jacket. Don't nobody want to see that. They paying all of these millionaires to show up for a moment and say, vote for Kamala. I think they paid J-Lo like $11 million. For what? For her to get some more cheek shots, some more cheek injections, some more butt cheek injections, some new titties? Huh? J-Lo don't need no campaign money to go get no more booty injections. She don't need no more booty injections. Trust me, her butt looked fine to me. I don't think it looked that fine to Ben Affleck because he looked like he is tired of her sugar honey iced tea. All right? But now they're $20 million in the hole when they didn't even have to pay all of that money to these ignorant ass celebrities that they brought out thinking that they can bribe their voters by letting them dance in front of them, huh? And shake and do all that twerking and whatnot. What did that do for them? Put them $20 million in the hole. Paying Call Me Daddy to come out so that they can set up a new set. We don't want to come out to your set. We're going to set up a new set. We're going to set it up here, right here. Yeah, so it can look beautiful and grand. That's what we're going to do. We're going to set it up right here. And they did it for Oprah too. No, we're not going to come out to the Oprah show. We're going to set up something else. We got a vision where we're going to have all of our celebrities. They're going to call in on Zoom. And they're going to be up on the wall. They can ask us questions. It's going to be beautiful. Come on, bro. How did that work out for you, Kamala? It's dumb as hell. And now the daggone Democrats, the women are shaving their heads. They're going on a campaign trying to say that they're not going to give their boyfriends no butt. They're not going to have no sex for the next 4 years because it's the man's fault that Trump won. So since the men voted for Trump, we ain't going to do nothing for them. Your daggone ding-a-ling can stay dry. That's what they're saying. This brother right here brought it, man. He brought it. He didn't even have to mention mental dysphoria or any of that. He brought it. All right. I really wanted y'all to see that. Guys, if you have not liked this video,
be careful because people will try to offer you stuff that is not commensurate to your value. They will try to give you what they themselves would never accept. They want you to accept a joke about a watermelon on a black man's head and say that they were just playing, but never any jokes about leprechauns or four-leaf clovers. They want you to accept an attempted insurrection on Capitol Hill on January 6th. But are threatening to pull out the military on those who march for Black Lives Matter. They want you to accept the dividing of families in the largest threat of deportation of immigrants, even if it divides mothers from children. And they said babies in cages will be a glorious day. They want you to believe that the smuggling of fentanyl has been from the Mexican cartel, but they will not tell you that the majority of those who have been arrested have been white males. They want you to accept that you're going to receive more money when Trump was not responsible for the stimulus check in the first place. They want you to get excited about getting a tax break, but Negro, you don't qualify. That's for folk that's making over $400,000 and you $50,000 or less, talking about make America great again. When, Negro? When was it great?
We gotta talk about him on After Hours.
They
for
can
real.
give it.
I want
but
y'all
they
to hear the whole
cannot
message.
take it. But you gotta be careful how you treat God's people, because the last will be first, and the first will be last. I don't know.
Hey, hold on. Is that Ike? Is that Ike and Tina to eat the cake? Oh, hold on. We gotta play this. Well, before we play it, make sure y'all tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description. Also, because we had a phenomenal live stream on the Patreon for the Bag Chasers. Real substance that allows for you to be successful and you can actually capitalize. We did a live stream and it's up for you guys to be able to restream. We did a live stream for you guys to be able to capitalize off this upcoming presidency and actually get the bag. I can't believe how bitter Jamal Bryant, Democrats, and the Black church has gotten to where they are now using anime Eat the Cake and they're leveraging their hate for Trump and our country and identity politics in order to justify their loss. It's amazing. It's amazing. And I will tell you, and I know that this is the part of the uncomfortable conversation that people don't want to have, but I will absolutely positively tell you that some of the most, not only because racist people come in all colors, shapes, creeds, sizes, genders, so on and so forth, that the Black church preaches more hate and against masculinity and is totally, in most Black churches such as this right here, is totally against the will of God, so much so that they will go against their own best interests. Let me tell you something. He said the last shall be first and the first shall be last. And then he started to equate it to tax breaks and Trump and so on and so forth. Let me ask y'all a question. After all of these years of supporting Democrats and this liberal agenda, what they've given you is tying you to the federal government in order to remove you from your home so that they can feminize your kids. This liberal agenda that, and if you've ever, and I'm going to continue to hit on this every single day that I can, if you guys have the opportunity, go and look at what the process is for removing unwanted babies in a form of contraception, abortion. Go and look it up and see what the process is, and then you tell me that is of God. They want you to support somebody that marched in a pride parade while they got all of these sassy men leading choir inside of their churches. And they have an assault on masculinity, and yet they want to cloak it in justification around why they didn't vote for Trump, when in reality, they are some of the most liberal, racist, sexist, and division, warmongering, hateful people that you will ever see in your entire life. Go to a Black church, listen to the message, and tell me that you come out of there feeling more and more like you are of God than if you just walk away and then go and study your Bible on your own. I gotta see what
all of our freedom fighters, even the civil rights leaders like Dr. King, they hated war. They preached against war. They denounced war. These Black bootlicking, buck dancing Greek freaks, these shoe shiners, love every war the U.S. participated in, so much so they cheered on the murder of Gaddafi and Black people got put in cages. They love war. They have totally went astray.
see what this Eat the K anime section is.
Where y'all are, but all my haters, I wanted you to know, eat the cake, anime, eat the cake. When it is that God puts his foot down, you don't know who God is going to bless. You don't know who God is going to restore. And you don't.
These people are stupid, bro. I'm not, I could have sworn when he was saying eat the cake, wasn't he slapping her with the cake? Wasn't he mushing cake in her face? Wasn't he beating her? Wasn't I beating Tina? They're talking about eat the cake anime. They go to show you. That's why you gotta be very careful. Those people that's in that crowd, they have no understanding about vibrations. That man could have said anything disgusting and vulgar, and they was gonna cheer because they trapped into the rhythm of his perverse teachings. He just glorified beating a woman and putting in her place, and they cheered. Yes! What? Ike said eat the cake anime if I'm not tripping. But they sitting there cheering on because they just it's caught up in the cult nature of them churches, man.
Don't know who God is gonna use.
Maybe he can use you.
Genesis 25.
On the back of the church.
In Genesis 25, Jacob said to his brother Esau, I know you are hungry, but if you give me your birthright, I'll give you Campbell's soup. And a lot of fools fell for it. A lot of people sold their self-worth and their self-esteem in this election cycle. 18 million people did not vote at all. The Latino community, even after being stereotyped as murderers and rapists and being respected by calling Puerto Rico floating garbage, went and voted in.
Let me tell you how evil the black church is and Jamal Bryant is. Public enemy number one because he is absolutely blaspheming and mocking God. Let me tell you how evil this guy is, right? He will remix what was actually said because Trump actually didn't even align, nor did he. When Trump sold out Madison Square Garden, okay, in order, at one of his rallies, and they had a comedian who he didn't know and he didn't associate with, but they booked him as a form of entertainment, same way they had Meg Thee Stallion twerking up there for Kamala Harris, and the comedian made these tongue-in-cheek jokes about every demographic, but then people wanted to leverage it and take the sound bites in order to justify and say, oh, no, that's Trump that said that. Trump never said it, but this is what they want to do in order to influence you. And y'all got to be able to do your own research, read between the lines, and study the word. The word will never go against itself. The word will never go against itself. When he was asked, I'm going to do a whole new review. I ain't even going to tell you when he was asked and what was going on, but I'm going to do a whole review video on it. I wish I was up. I wish I was aware that he was on a certain podcast. I would have pulled up, but we going to get there. But listen to him. Listen to how they spew this hate. And then they cloak it in the name of justification and church and God, and he gonna raise them. How come black people still so far behind and they in last place, but they've been Democrats their entire life? That's what I want to know. When they gonna raise you up? Generation after generation, just like the children of Israel, they never got to the land of milk and honey. It's people that come over here and beat black people all day long, and y'all still talking the same old.
Record numbers. Ladies and gentlemen, white women even threw their support, realizing that they would have no authority about decisions over their bodies. Contrary to what the news did in trying to separate our community, 78% of black men voted and did the right thing.
Look at these simps. Look at the simps.
The reality, what we found out this week is that some people in America couldn't get over their own misogyny because they would rather have a clown than have a queen. Ladies and gentlemen, I stand before you today and I want to salute and celebrate the most consistent voting bloc in America since 2016 has been black women.
The black woman again.
And black women showed America on Tuesday, I would rather starve to death than elect a fascist, racist, rapist, misogynist dictator who has no respect respect over my womanhood or over my community.
And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the divisiveness, the simping, and the reason why black men are leaving the church. If you look in this,
that's serious business. Like, that's so crazy. Who thought the day would come? That's what I'm saying. This is serious business. We really haven't got to deal with this type of shit. That man that preached for abortion, I never even heard it. I never been to no church where you can even be so proud to discuss abortion in such a fashion. That's why them old school preachers didn't like these type of Negroes. They knew where this was going. To where this nigga here had the audacity to sit up and talk about the woman's right over her body. I've never heard nothing like that in church. Woman's right over her body. What? Now you heard about the Lord. He said, thou shalt not. You understand? But this is disgusting. This is disgusting. Preaching that genocide in that pulpit. Praying on the ignorance of these people.
in this background, aside from that over circle in the upper right hand corner, if you look in the background, you can see what the look of the black church is. If you look in the background, you can see the demographic. He's speaking to his demographic. This is Umar Johnson on steroids. Umar Johnson on steroids with a church congregation and a Bible behind him right here, right there, right now. Y'all let me know what y'all think inside of the chat. Make sure y'all tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description.
That's disgusting. Finessing women to feel okay with genocidal policies.
This is a channel, this is or a show that probably should have been on TV 5 years ago. Let's just keep it real. But we got to review this. We got to check this out, man, because Sunny, I mean, she loses it. She just flat out loses her mind. Like, share, subscribe. Without further ado, let's go check this out.
What I don't like is this finger pointing blame game that's going on within the Democratic Party. And I've said this before. Why isn't the conversation about how Republicans can get behind a convicted felon? Why Republicans are behind this crass, I don't even have the words for it, this twice impeached former president. I think that when Republicans lost in 2020, that kind of introspection didn't occur. In fact, they refused to concede the election. They were election deniers in large part, and then doubled down on these grievance politics, wedge issues, and it turned out just fine for them. Turned out just fine because they reelected this person. So for me, I just feel like the Democrats don't need to do this.
There actually was an autopsy report by the RNC in 2012 when.
What they don't understand is that it's not really about Trump as much as it is about his policies. And it's not so much about the Democrat Party or Kamala Harris as it is about their rhetoric and ideology that has gone so far left. And they're so crazy that people just can't stomach the policies that these people are pushing. So everybody talks about, or these people, they talk about the crassness or the brashness of Trump. It's not about that. We're looking at the policies. And when you look at, who he's, appointed as chief of staff, groundbreaking, first time ever, woman chief of staff. When you look at who he's placed in the borders position, somebody that's going to go in and get the job done. When you look at some of the other positions and some of the other people playing or that will play roles within this administration, the people are looking at that like, okay, finally, this country's pointed in the right direction. These people are still focused on things that don't actually matter. And that's what the American people stood up against last week.
Romney won. Yeah, and the RNC did an autopsy report asking that there be more inclusiveness, that, And frankly, Donald Trump came along in 2016,
Yes.
did everything, did exactly the opposite, and won.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
well,
won
I
again.
think that I don't think the pointing at individuals. I think the parties shifted. Like they keep saying tectonic shifts in the party bases and where people are. So I come down a lot to messaging because I think the focus for so many of us who would not have voted for him was what an awful person he was, and we focused on that. What we didn't realize is that wasn't going to be the motivating factor. They wanted to hear about the issues that were hurting people. I thought people would vote on women's reproductive health, because that was very important to me. What I didn't account for is that it passed in 7 of 10 states that had it on the ballot, and they still voted for Donald Trump. So there were ways that I didn't see what I was missing, where I sit in my life, what people were screaming about. I was out of touch with that.
Let me ask.
Yeah, the fear mongering about pregnancy terminations in comparison to the border, being open, the amount of crime that's happened because of our open border, our economy. When you look at inflation, those things matter more. And what we do know is that the current administration is the reason behind a lot of the ills of this country right now.
Ask you something. Do you remember Donald Trump? Yes, I just said his name.
Oh, you did?
Do you remember him talking about the working class in any of his?
I remember him talking about the economy. I don't agree with his tariffs.
What do you remember about
tariffs?
That's anything else?
I remember him
tariffs.
saying that immigrants were coming in here to take Black jobs
And bringing jobs
Hispanic
back.
jobs.
Yes. But did you hear anything about what he was going to do, what the plan was? So we have hired somebody, rehired somebody who had no plan, who's kind of sucking his thumb and walking along.
Yeah.
And said, here, you have the keys to the kingdom. I'm sorry, I don't remember hearing anybody but his surrogates talk about what their plans were. But I never heard him really say much more than we're going to have tariffs and everything is really, really big.
I don't remember him.
Agenda 47 has been on Trump's website for a very long time. You want to know what his plan is? Go and do that. Y'all spent so much time fear mongering about Project 25 or 2025 that y'all failed to actually go and look at Agenda 47 and see the policies and some of the things that he wanted to implement that looks like he will be able to implement in this upcoming administration.
Talking about kitchen table issues.
But what I don't understand, though, is like all of this finger pointing, and invariably it's going to happen. When there's a loss, like the Democrats just got routed, that's invariably going to happen, that there's going to be blame and searching, firing squads and all of this. I think that you need to figure out how to move forward. And I say this as somebody who's not a Democrat, but wants to see two healthy parties. You know what I think they should be doing? I wish they would come in and bring in Ruben Gallego. He just won the Senate seat in Arizona, even though Kamala Harris lost the state. Bring in Jackie Rosen. She just won the Senate seat in Nevada, even though Kamala Harris lost the state. Figure out what they were saying, what they were doing. And I mean, I just, it's done, folks. Donald Trump won, and he won decisively. How do you look forward, not backwards, at the man who got us out of COVID, out of a pandemic, out of a horrible situation? Stop blaming Joe Biden. Eso es muy feo, muy feo.
Yeah,
Well, the thing too is that not only did Trump win, but Republicans won the House and the Senate. So Republicans actually have the House, the Senate, and the White House. Trump has carte blanche to kind of do almost whatever he wants to do and attempt to accomplish whatever it is that he would like to get accomplished this time around. He has the ability to do so. I'm looking forward to it.
Because what else would people talk about?
Yeah.
If they didn't talk about how badly we did. Yeah, we lost. And yeah, there are lots of questions. But is somebody going to ask them at some point? It remains to be seen. But there are questions.
By the way, Nancy was at Kamala Harris's election night party in Washington. I saw her.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm glad. Listen, I'm glad everybody was where they were, and we know what we need to do as Americans who don't agree, okay? So we're just going to keep on going. And I'm not pointing any fingers towards people. I'll tell you what people actually did do. But I'm not going to say, oh, my God, what happened? What happened?
Yeah.
We lost is what happened.
Yeah.
Exactly. You lost. They fear-mongered. They shamed. They lied a lot leading up to Election Day. And now all of a sudden, they know the world's not going to end. They know that the economy is going to, get better. They know that companies are going to start, hiring again. The border is going to close down. deportations are going to happen in high numbers. I mean, you look at everything that's fallen in line, that's fallen into place right now. Putin's already reached out. The folks over in, in Iran, Hamas, they've already reached out and trying to figure out how we can solve things. New York City has decided that, hey, we're going to cut off the spigot of all this money that we're, giving to all these illegal immigrants or migrants out here. This is happening. This is happening. Yes, The View, I know they're insufferable. They can panic and they can fearmonger all they want, but it didn't work. It didn't work, and it won't work the next time. And, when this election or the next election pops up, and let's not even talk about, 2028, let's not even talk about that right now. Let's talk about the things that Trump is putting in place right now to help steer this country in the right direction. I'm excited. I'm excited that some progress is already starting to be made and people already want to talk. I'm glad to see it. We are no longer looking like the weak nation that we've, portrayed ourselves to be over the past 3.5, almost 4 years now. We've looked very weak, and countries have taken advantage of it. They've taken advantage of us. Obviously, a lot of money laundering and things of that nature going on, with all these wars and all this other kind of stuff going on. And hopefully that's something that will to a cease or stop very, very quickly. Let me know or hear from you guys. I'm looking forward to it. What do you guys think about this?
Today is Veterans Day. Yesterday was the day that the Marine Corps celebrates. Can you explain that, please?
Well, every November 10th, the United States Marine Corps comes together wherever Marines are stationed around the world, and we celebrate the founding of our beloved Corps. We are a wonderful organization with a proud tradition that began in a bar, Tun's Tavern outside of Philadelphia, where the first Marines were recruited. So every November 10th, we get together and recreate that event by hosting a magnificent ball. Traditionally, the youngest and oldest Marine in attendance will come together, and the oldest will cut the cake and deliver the first piece to the youngest Marine, who will eat the cake, and then Marines will proceed to get drunk. We in the Marine Corps tend to refer to Veterans Day as Hangover Recovery Day because of the festivities that take place on the 10th.
Can I read into this that the first Marines were drunks?
The first Marines were more than likely working class continental patriots who were probably in a bar having healthy discussions and had nothing better to do.
How did the Marine Corps come under the Department of the Navy?
Well, Marines traditionally are naval infantry, and the first Marines Marines served aboard ships. They were the boarding parties. They maintained discipline. They were the landing parties. Later as warfare developed, Marine battalions became expeditionary forces. They were deployed with the U.S. Navy. If you read the lyrics of the Marine Corps hymn, From the Halls of Montezuma to the Shores of Tripoli, the shores of Tripoli refer to First Lieutenant Presley O'Bannon, a Marine officer who led his Marine detachment in 1805 to capture the Libyan city of Derna, which was then held by Barbary pirates. His heroism prompted the sheik of the area to give him a sword, a Mameluke sword. And in 1825, the Commandant of the Marine Corps, Archibald Henderson, in recognition of Presley O'Bannon's heroism, designated the Mameluke sword to be the sword for all Marine officers. And indeed, when you graduate from the basic school, you have to purchase your own Mameluke sword. I have my sword. Every Marine officer has their sword. It's something. It's part of our heritage. Something we're very proud of.
And who dispatched those Marines to protect American shipping? Thomas.
I would imagine that would be Thomas Jefferson. Yes, he sent there. Look, I love the Marine Corps, and I love the discipline. I love the heritage and everything. But there's another very famous Marine out there, Smedley Butler, two-time winner of the Congressional Medal of Honor. And,
most decorated soldier in American history.
Absolutely. And he reflected back on his time in the Marine Corps, and he's a very proud Marine. But he said that, more often than not, Marines serve the interests of, big money, and that rather than being a patriot defending his country, oftentimes he felt like a hitman, defending racketeers. The issue isn't the Marines, of course. The issue is those who send Marines into combat, and we have a duty and responsibility as Americans to make sure that before we send the brave men and women who honor us by wearing the uniform of the Marine Corps or the other services, the lesser services as we call them. And I'm joking. I have nothing but love in my heart for the soldiers, sailors, and the airmen out there, and Coast Guardsmen, and I guess now the guardians of the Space Force. But they implement policy. We have to make sure that the policy we're asking them to implement is sound policy, worthy of the sacrifice.
And let's get to the policy, although policy is sometimes personnel. I mean, Donald Trump announced over the weekend, much to the glee of viewers of this program and people on the program like you, that Nikki Haley and Mike Pompeo would have nothing to do with his next administration and with his administration. And then in the next breath, announced that the ultra-Zionist Elise Stefanik would be his U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. Not nearly as significant a role as Secretary of State or Secretary of Defense, but maybe this indicates the direction Trump is going in. And if it does, this is not good news.
Well, first of all, I think we need to be honest. Trump was never going to be good about Israel, ever. And we knew that. We knew that going in. But one of the problems with this election is when you have an issue like the ongoing genocide in Gaza, the potential of conflict with Iran, neither candidate was good. I mean, Jill Stein, made her campaign based around this. She did have an impact in Michigan. I think we have to acknowledge that, she did strip votes away from Kamala Harris, and put her thumb on the scale for Donald Trump. But nationally, she got 0.04%. She didn't even get 1%. She was hoping for 5%. She was a non-factor. Israel, the conflict in Gaza, didn't resonate nationally. And Trump was always going to be very bad on this issue from the standpoint of those wanting peace, for the standpoint of those who believe that Palestine should have a home of their own. Trump is a staunch Zionist, a supporter of Benjamin Netanyahu, a supporter of Israel. So it should shock no one that he would put in the United Nations, which is the front lines of America's diplomatic support to Israel. This is where the United States can use its veto to hold back global attacks on Israel diplomatically. And Elise Stefanik will represent the interests of Israel on behalf of the United States and the United Nations. I would have been shocked had he picked anybody who didn't have similar mindset. And we will wait and see what he does. I think, by putting Stefanik in the United Nations, he liberates himself now to have a more careful person occupying the position of Secretary of State or Department of Defense. I think his priorities will be not so much Israel, but Russia, Ukraine, and China. And here we're going to need somebody who has a little bit more gravitas, a little bit more depth, a little bit more moderation. So Elise Stefanik is going to be a mouthpiece, who will be singing Israel's tune in the United Nations. But there's literally nothing other than a veto that Elise Stefanik can wage. She doesn't make policy. That's the important thing to realize.
Right. Not only does she not make policy, they tell her how to vote. Whoever the Secretary of State is, and she doesn't know yet, but whoever that person is, it could be Marco Rubio, who's probably knows less than she does, but whoever it is will be telling her how to vote. We're going to veto this. We're going to go along with that. Yeah.
Right. I don't think it'll be Marco Rubio as well. And there's a number of reasons why I believe that. One, I think Trump learned last time that you don't put people with political aspirations in positions of authority because they will use those positions to leapfrog over you. he was betrayed over and over again by people like this. And Marco Rubio has not been an ally of Donald Trump. In fact, he has articulated often and recently his opposition to Donald Trump. So I find it hard to believe that Donald Trump would be willing to sweep all of that under the rug and suddenly put Rubio in a position where he has a national platform. He's a young man. He would clearly have political aspirations. He would seek to be seen as an alternative J.D. Vance. I don't see Trump going that direction. I think Trump will put somebody who doesn't have a track record of disloyalty. That's one of first and foremost, I think, is the the criterion that are being used to pick these people is loyalty to Trump. And the other thing is fresh blood of people with a new outlook. Marco Rubio has articulated too long and for too strongly in favor of the Ukraine conflict. Donald Trump doesn't want to be in conflict with it.
He recently did say, to my surprise, it was almost as if he was making a pitch for himself for office. Chris, do we have that Marco Rubio statement where he actually says Ukraine is lost and the State Department knows it? Sounds like he was making a pitch. Let's move on. What do you think is the Kremlin's view, not articulated but held internally, of Trump's victory? What does President Putin think?
Well, I mean, this is pure speculation. I can tell you that the Russians have for some time now said that the most important thing for them in terms of America is predictability. And in many cases, this meant that as much as they dislike the policies being put forward by the Biden administration and the policies that could be put forward by a Harris administration, at least they would be predictable, and that would allow Russia to define its courses of action, what they need to do to oppose policies being put forward by an American administration, etc. Unpredictability is something that the Russians disdain, and not knowing what a president will do makes things very difficult. And right now, they have perhaps the single most unpredictable president has been elected, and so this creates problems for them. Of course, the Russians would like to take advantage of any possibility of improving relations with the United States, but they're dealing with a man who isn't well grounded in the facts, doesn't know the details of what makes this policy work, and has shown in the past to be susceptible to pressure being placed on him by people hostile to improved relations. Remember, Trump promised to be friends with Russia in 2016 and then ended up bragging that he was the strongest, hardest president against Russia. I think the Russians right now are waiting for the opportunity to engage with the Trump team to find out what they want. But Russia, here's the thing that, and if anybody from the Trump team is listening, I'm just going to give it to you straight. The idea that you can dictate an outcome to Russia over Ukraine is absurd in the extreme and doomed to fail. And if you want to poison the well, if you want to ensure that there will never be improved relations, try that tack. You see a whole bunch of fake news out there about plans about Trump wants to put British soldiers on 800 miles in front. Trump never said anything like that. It's not part of the Trump formulation. It's an absurd plan that comes out of Ukraine and Great Britain that is being packaged as a Trump idea. The idea that Trump and Putin had a phone call was absurd. The Russians have come out and said there was no such phone call. People are trying to poison the well already by putting forward ideas that are so fundamentally against the reality, the Russian reality, that it's designed to turn Russia off. Fortunately, Russia doesn't pay attention to American news. They will want to hear it from the horse's mouth,
right?
And they're waiting for that time for that to happen.
The phone call is somewhat peculiar. The Washington Post reported that the phone call occurred, and Trump said to Putin, "Don't accelerate your military into Ukraine." Now, we know that didn't happen, but the fact that it came from the Washington Post means it probably came from the CIA, meaning there are still CIA out there who want to attempt to control the narrative. Dmitry Peskov, President Putin's spokesperson, said it never happened. You understand the way President Putin thinks. I can't imagine he would sit there and listen to anybody, Donald Trump or anybody, telling him how to control his military, particularly in the middle of a war.
It'd be the shortest conversation in history. No, this is ridiculous. Look, first of all, the CIA, brought us this conflict. The CIA has been tasked since the Cold War time to bring down the Soviet Union, and they carried on that mission after the collapse of the Soviet Union to bring down Russia. This has been the never-ending task of the CIA. Regardless of who president is, the CIA has always had a mission statement of bringing down Russia. The CIA gave us 2014, gave us the Maidan coup. The CIA gave us 12 permanent CIA bases on the border between Ukraine and Russia to spy into Russia, to carry out covert actions, to disrupt Russia. The CIA gave us Navalny. The CIA gave us Gary Kasparov. They gave us Nemtsov. They gave us all of these so-called opposition leaders whose sole purpose is to bring down Russia and bring down Vladimir Putin. The CIA has given us sanctions. The CIA has given us this endless war, secret armies to invade Russia. The CIA is very nervous about Donald Trump coming in because for the first time, if Trump follows through on that which he says he wants to, the United States mission statement of seeking the strategic defeat of Russia could be reversed. That is, of course, the prerequisite for any improved relations. Is the Russians say, we won't talk to you about anything if you're telling us that strategically your goal is to defeat us.
Right.
Then there's nothing to talk about. You're our adversary, and we're just going to keep doing what we do because we're winning. If you want to improve relations, you have to tell us that you're not trying to defeat us, that we can peacefully coexist, and now we can talk. And the CIA is scared to death of that. This is why the statement made by President-elect Trump earlier, where he talked about anybody in the national security state that has used their position to lie, to attack Americans, to distort the truth will be removed. The CIA is in great risk of seeing its mission and even its existence as it's currently manifested brought to an end.
I would love to see, and through an interesting route, told them why they should get rid of the operations department of the CIA. That's the crew that runs coups and fights secret wars and spies on Americans. We're not talking about legitimate intel gathering from foreign countries, those that wish us ill and those that wish us well. We're talking about a secret government that does whatever it wants. We'll see where Trump comes down on that. How do you think the NATO and EU elites have viewed, I'm sure sleepless nights, have viewed Trump's victory?
This is an existential crisis for them because Donald Trump is in a position and is inclined to significantly reduce American engagement with NATO, to make demands upon NATO in terms of non-American sufficiency, meaning learn to live without the American taxpayers' dollars underwriting everything you do. And NATO can't. This is the reality. I laugh when I hear the statements about the president of Poland meeting with the British and the French to come up with some sort of European backbone and spine that's going to stay in Ukraine and back Ukraine up when the Americans leave. They can't afford it. They don't have it. They don't have the British. As I said, the British military today, if you bring them all together and put them in a large soccer stadium, there will be 30,000 unsold seats. It's not even a real military anymore. The Poles don't have a military capable of fighting by themselves. The French certainly don't have one. The idea of these three nations, all of whom have significant internal domestic problems, coming together to suddenly stand up to Russia is absurd. But this is the desperation that they face. NATO is quickly going to be exposed as one of the more, not just irrelevant organizations, but dangerous organizations, dangerous to the United States, dangerous to Europe. In the European Union, there are already deep fractures in the European Union They need the United States to underwrite them, to bolster them, to basically the United States has become those parents that keep irresponsible adult children in business by paying their bills, paying for their car loans, paying for their apartments, paying everything. And Trump has come in and he's the parent that says, I'm not doing that anymore. And when that happens, that party lifestyle is done. And the European Union, NATO has been a party funded by the United States for too long. It's time for it to end. And there's a lot of panic going on in Europe today.
How badly is Ukraine losing as we speak, Scott?
It's devastating for Ukraine. I mean, this is, we're looking at, again, continued significant personnel losses, equipment losses. Their air defense is crumbling. Last night, there was a massive attack by Russia against Ukraine, and Ukraine was unable to defend itself. This is the kind of attack that will continue over and over again. Even when Ukraine receives equipment, we continue to send equipment their way. The equipment isn't being used by trained personnel, and it's being destroyed almost as soon as it's deployed. The Russians are just making continuous advances. They're less than 20 kilometers away from the administrative border of Dnipropetrovsk. That means once they reach that, they've recaptured all of the Donbass, of Donetsk, Lugansk. They're making gains in Zaporizhia, and if they cross the Dnieper River into Kherson, that means they're going to Odessa. And it's just a desperate time for the Ukrainians. And we have winter coming where there's no power, no water, the inability to sustain life. Big cities are going to literally freeze to death. Ukraine's in for a very, very rough ride, which is why I think the Trump administration realistically says we can't keep this party going. We have to bring this to an end.
Trump told a number of gatherings during the campaign that he would end the war in 24 hours. Well, A, I don't know how he could do that, but B, the war might be over before he gets inaugurated.
I think, Trump has done, the relationship between Don Trump Jr. and his father is, it's one that I don't think anybody can say they know exactly what's going on there, but I think it's closer than many know. Don Trump Jr. together, RFK Jr. wrote an article about bringing an end to the Ukraine conflict. It was published in the Hill magazine. They also talked about preventing nuclear war, and I don't believe that article could have been published without the approval and knowledge of the Trump campaign and Donald Trump himself. And Donald Trump Jr. put out a meme today that showed Zelensky, and he basically alluded to the fact that this is what a man looks like who's been told that his allowance is about to be cut off. The implication being that the policy decision of the Trump administration is to cut funding to Ukraine. This is the reality of a Trump policy towards Ukraine, and it means the end of the war. Ukraine can't survive without American funding.
Do you think that the United States will remove Zelensky, since we know Putin's not going to deal with him, and replace Zelensky, not necessarily by violence, but by telling him your time is up, replace him with somebody more rational and farsighted?
Well, I think this is what we're going to be seeing happening between now and January 20th is for the Trump administration to make it as clear as possible, either directly or indirectly through European proxies, that the lifeline is cut off, and that it's going to get very ugly very soon. This is why you see a panic in Europe as they're trying to come together to figure out how to come up with alternative means of funding. This is why the Biden administration is panicked right now, trying to say we need to get as much money into Ukraine as possible before January 20th. But Zelensky may, like any person with addictive tendencies, he's addicted to American money, and he may fall victim to believing that will be enough, that if he can just get that money, then more will come. The Trump administration, I think, is looking for people who surround Zelensky and people in Europe who recognize the reality of what it means when the American spigot is turned off, and to impress upon not Zelensky per se, but those around him, that it is in the best interest of Ukraine to make a peace that, as bad as it would seem like, is far better than the one that they would get if Russia continues this conflict after January 20th, and will dictate terms that will be far more harsh than a peace that could be achieved today. This is where I think Trump, let's get away from the notion of him threatening Putin and all this stuff. This is where Trump can end the war before he comes into office, by making it crystal clear to Ukraine and their European allies that the spigot's off, there's no more money. And if you want to go that route, the Russian victory will be absolute and the surrender will be unconditional. Right now, while there's still the illusion of resources coming into Ukraine, the Ukrainians might be able to dictate something that, while not pleasant, I mean, they have lost the war after all, that is a reality, would at least give them something more than what they would get if they have to surrender at the tip of a barrel of a gun.
I want to switch gears before we leave for the day, Scott, and ask you about Ron Dermer. Now, Ron Dermer, for those who don't know, is Prime Minister Netanyahu's closest advisor. He was born in Miami Beach, Florida. He renounced his American citizenship in order to be in Prime Minister Netanyahu's cabinet. You can have the dual Israeli-American citizenship, but once he got to a certain level in the cabinet, he had to renounce American citizenship, and he did that. I met him many times when I was at Fox. Last week, he secretly visited Moscow, according to Haaretz this morning. What do you think that was all about?
Israel's in a very, very difficult situation. They are collapsing from within. Their economy is collapsing. They took a $67 billion hit last year. That's not about the war. That's about normal economic functioning. $67 billion hit. This year, they're in line to take a hit of over $100 million. There's no tourism. Last year, 90% drop. And right now, just nobody's going there. There's no investment taking place. They're looking at absolute economic collapse. And that's the end of any society when they have that. They're on the verge of civil war. The relief of the defense minister, Gallant, has created tension within the military. The Netanyahu government itself is decisively split. So they're on the verge of a civil war with a collapsing economy, and they aren't winning anywhere. They're getting slaughtered in Gaza, slaughtered in southern Lebanon, and Iran is just hanging over them like this evil cloud that could come down at any time, and there's nothing Israel could do to stop it. They are in desperate straits. Russia is one of the most influential nations in the world. I know here in the United States, we don't like to hear that because we're trying to destroy Russia, but Russia today diplomatically has far more leverage on the international community than the United States does. And Russia has a very large and significant Jewish population, and Russia has maintained very close relations between Russian Jews and Israeli Jews over the years. Russia also has great relations with China and Iran and the region as a whole. I think Israel is looking for a lifeline. I think Israel's reaching out to Russia saying, hey, we can't keep going the American negotiation route because nobody trusts the Americans more. This thing is done. We're dying. We are literally dying. This is the truth. It's not me just saying this. Israeli generals, Israeli politicians have come out and said, if you don't change this dynamic, Israel self-destructs this year. This year, the state of Israel ceases to exist if they don't change it. That's the kind of desperate straits. When I say this year, I mean 2025. Talking about within a year.
Right. And it's all of this to be laid at the feet of one man, Benjamin Netanyahu.
Benjamin Netanyahu has killed Israel. He is solely responsible for the death of Israel. And I think this visit to Moscow is a plea for help, to say, please help us save ourselves because we are dying. We are desperate. We have nothing. If we keep doing what we're doing, it's over. If Iran attacks us, all we can do is nukes, and we don't want to do that. We need help, and I think they're looking to Vladimir Putin to save them.
Wow. Did the Russians and the Iranians ever sign that mutual defense pact?
My understanding is that they have signed a mutual defense pact, and that pact is being implemented as we speak. It may not be as intimate as the one that Russia has with North Korea, but it's a very serious defense pact, and it has Iranian military technology going to Russia and Russian military technology coming to Iran, and the two nations working together in common cause.
Scott, thank you very much. Again, a happy Veterans Day to you, a belated
Brazil people are concerned about Marco.
Honest and attacks in Beirut, where they're slaughtering mass numbers of people across Lebanon. Things are turning increasingly against the regime, and global public opinion is turning against the regime. And whether it's Islamic countries or non-Islamic countries, you do see a hardening of positions that are being taken by differing governments. And some of it may be sincere. Some of those stances may be honest and the true opinions of the rulers. And some of them may be under pressure from their own populations. So we've seen, for example, Mohammed bin Salman take a more harsh approach towards the Israeli regime and stating that they're carrying out a genocide in Gaza, something that is notable. And you see also, in addition to that, you see people who usually don't gather around the same table. Again, in larger numbers, gathering together because the issue of Palestine is becoming so urgent for either them or their populations or both. And I think this meeting is just part of the problem that the Israeli regime faces. While the West will support Israel, regardless of what it does, the West will continue to support the Israelis until they've exterminated the last Palestinian. They can kill millions of Palestinians in the West Bank after they finish with Gaza, and the West will continue to justify it. Western media will continue to pretend to be showing us both sides. But I think the reality on the ground in Europe, in North America as well, is changing. And people are becoming increasingly disgusted with the regime. So it's just another sign, I think. The meeting in itself is not going to lead to much. The Turkish president speaks in very harsh terms, but he still continues to provide the Israeli regime with the oil that it needs to carry out the genocide. Others are very critical as well, but there's been no policy change. But I think it's reflective of something deeper, and that the mood across the world is becoming increasingly difficult for not just the Israeli regime, but also the West itself and the United States.
How do you find so far the people that Donald Trump is picking for his administration? He's talking about Marco Rubio to be the Secretary of State, and here is in Brazil, people are concerned about Marco Rubio because they know how he would behave toward the South American countries. But how about Iran?
House nigga.
How do they feel in Iran or in Middle East?
I think that if anyone expected Trump to be any different than what he is, I would be surprised. There is absolutely no reason to believe that Trump is going to be any different from Biden or any better than Biden. And Trump's choices are definitely not going to be any worse than Jake Sullivan, who is a Zionist, or the outgoing Secretary of State, often called Netanyahu's lawyer, Anthony Blinken. So I don't see any change in policy. One thing that may be a bit different is that if Iran and the Israeli regime get into a slugging match, which I think it's very clear that the Iranians would win, I think it would be more difficult for Trump to enter the fray. Whoever does, I mean, if the United States did attack Iran, the consequences would be catastrophic for the world. It's not something that the Americans would win. And as I've said before, it would lead to Iran destroying US bases across the region, and it would mean the end of the oil and gas exports from the Persian Gulf and from the Caucasus. And that would just destroy Western economies. It would be devastating for us, for the region, for the world, but the West would definitely not win. But beyond that, I think because of the fact that Trump has promised no more wars, it would be more difficult for him to get involved. But that doesn't mean he won't do so. Trump is somewhat unpredictable, and the people around him are no better than the people who surround Biden. But I think that Trump also has an advantage for Iran in that his team will probably isolate the United States even further than the way in which Biden's team has isolated the United States, whether it's because of the genocide in Gaza, the genocidal attacks in Lebanon, or because of the war in Ukraine. The United States has become has been weakened over the past 4 years significantly. But I think that Trump, his policies, his potential policies towards Latin America, if this is indeed his choice for the Secretary of State, will become more adversarial, and it will isolate the United States further. And the people that he's choosing are China hawks, and that would cause a great deal of trouble as well. We could have a trade war, and I don't think that the United States will do well in a trade war. And in addition to that, I don't think that Trump is going to be able to achieve what he wants to achieve in Ukraine so easily. There's a lot of blood has been spilled. The Russians have great expectations. They have significant demands, especially with regards to Ukrainian neutrality, but also with regards to Russian speakers in eastern and southern Ukraine. The issue of Odessa is, I think, something that's very important for Russia, especially because Russian civilization has a very strong link to the city, and because of the events that happened in Odessa after the coup, the fact that many Russian speakers were burned alive during a protest. So I don't think it'll be easy for Trump to square the circle. If he capitulates to President Putin's demands, then he will be humiliated. And if he does not, then I don't see how they can end the war in one day. But also there's the issue of the Europeans who continue to be hostile towards Russia, the Russian assets that have been stolen effectively, and some of them have been spent allegedly, or at least the profits have been spent. So there are many issues right now in Europe that can't be resolved easily. And I think therefore Trump, being the person who is already very polarizing and has many enemies across the world, when he comes to power as a result of all of this, I think he's going to isolate the United States even further.
With the Trump administration right now being formed and just picking new people for his administration, do you think that the Middle Eastern countries, the West Asia countries, are getting to the point that the solution for the conflict in Gaza and in Lebanon, as you mentioned, MBS was talking about it, and all of the leaders are talking about it. And do you think that they're getting to the point that they would consider the solution is in the Middle East, is not in the United States, and the role that the United States can play in the Middle East? Because at the end of the day, we know how much of leverage the Netanyahu and Israelis have on Washington.
I think people already recognize that to a large degree, but many of these regimes are bound to the United States. Their elites, their leaders were trained in the West. They have palaces in the West. They have assets in the West. They spend their vacations there. They send their families there. They send their children there to study. And probably, if they feel they're about to be overthrown, they have plans to live in the West. So many of these countries or these regimes in the Persian Gulf region or West Asia, they are, they're stuck with the United States. But at the same time, they also, the elites recognize that the United States is not the power that they thought it to be. For example, when Aramco was struck, the United States wasn't able to do anything about it. In fact, the reason why the war between Yemen and Saudi Arabia came to an end, the genocidal war, which Trump supported, but of course Obama did too. This genocidal war, the reason why it failed ultimately, and the Saudis had to accept a ceasefire, was because Yemen was increasingly striking Saudi oil assets, and the Americans couldn't do anything about it. So gradually, as we move forward, elites in the Persian Gulf region in West Asia increasingly understood the limits of U.S. power. And as we've been moving forward, especially in the last 3 years, especially after Ukraine, and then, of course, the events in Palestine, I think not only did they see U.S. power diminish, but in general, Western soft power was destroyed. The populations across the region are extremely hostile towards Western governments, European governments, North American governments, because they're behind the Holocaust. So it's very difficult for these leaders that are bound to the West to ignore these. And they know that in order to stay in power, they have to be very careful about their population. They also recognize that the power of the United States is sort of like melting ice. So they are seeking to change the nature of their relationship with countries like Iran, Russia, China, among others. But you do see, for example, in the fact that Saudi Arabia, on the one hand, it wants to carry out naval maneuvers with Iran, which is an interesting step. But on the other hand, Saudi Arabia has still refrained from actually joining BRICS, even though it's been invited. So I think that's sort of reflective of where Saudi Arabia stands, and so do other countries in the region. I think that's like an interesting example of how it is. But the difference is that a decade ago, these countries would have been literally on their knees for the Americans. When Trump came in, people across the region were ridiculing the Persian Gulf regimes because they were seen as being milked by Trump, and that's something that he was bragging about. But I think it's going to be increasingly difficult for him to do what he did in the past because so many things have changed since he left office.
We had a new video message from Netanyahu again to Iranian people. He's trying to convince people to rise up against the government in Iran. Do you think recently the new Minister of Defense of Israel, he's called Israel Katz, if I'm not mistaken, he said that they're going to attack nuclear facilities in Iran. And how do you find the rhetoric on their part right now and the way they're talking? If you remember, whenever they wanted to talk Gaza, Lebanon, they send a video message, then they start attacking Lebanon or Gaza. And right now they're doing the same with Iran. How did you find it?
In the West, they have, for decades, they've been saying that the Israelis know this region very well. And the Israelis have always been famous for understanding the so-called Arab mind. Very racist term, but anyway. But I think it just shows that the Israelis actually don't understand the region. And probably they understand it even less than Western elites, which is saying a lot. The West is really clueless about our region. Just watching their elites in think tanks speak, or reading their articles, or watching some of them online or on television, I think shows how their analysis is based on wishful thinking and what they want to believe, or what their funders want them to say or want to believe. And the Israelis, I think, are worse than most, if not all, of those in the West. For example, in the West, they say the Arabs, and we always hear how the Arabs and the Israelis want peace, and they want to cooperate, and they want to be allies. But they're talking about a few Arab dictatorships. The population in the United Arab Emirates is hostile towards the Israeli regime. In Bahrain, it's hostile towards the Israeli regime. In Qatar and Kuwait, in Saudi Arabia and Jordan, they're all very hostile. Or in Egypt. But Western elites somehow equate the ruling families with the entire population of the country, which I think is a very dangerous way to look at things. The Israeli regime has not only, in my opinion, not miscalculated when it struck Gaza, because initially they said we're going to starve them. And they were very open about their genocidal intent, as we all know. They said very openly that they're Amalek, and looking to the biblical, the Old Testaments, we see that the Amalek were completely wiped out: women, children, animals, everything. So they're subhuman to the Israelis. They said we're going to cut off water, we're going to cut off food, medicine, electricity, fuel, everything. And that there are no innocents, as the Israeli president said, in Gaza. But they miscalculated. It's well over a year and they've still failed to take Gaza. In fact, they've had significant casualties over the last 72 hours. This is the regime that was able to go all the way to the Suez very swiftly once upon a time, or in Lebanon too. They failed. They failed to take anything in Lebanon. They slaughter people, which is, again, is a miscalculation, because every airstrike further angers people across the region, and fingers are pointed not just towards Israel, but towards London, towards Paris, towards Associated Press, towards Reuters, towards CNN, because people see all of these as a part of this effort to destroy the region, to justify the destruction of the region, to protect ethno-supremacism. And ethno-supremacism, which really it's a mythological ethnicity, because Jews from Europe are not Semites, even Jews from Morocco and other parts of the Arabic world are not Semites. The Semites are the Palestinians, who are overwhelmingly non-Jewish. But in any case, the world, the region sees the West as being behind this. So all of these actions by the Israeli regime are miscalculations. And what they did is the exact opposite. They have united the region in a way in which we have never seen before. This is very important, Nima. The meeting of leaders that you alluded to at the very beginning of our discussion is important. The fact that the statements are becoming more harsh. Before the president of Syria and the president of Algeria and the Iranians and a few others were making tough statements. Now it's almost becoming universal. And this is, on the one hand, and then on the other hand, you see populations converging. For decades now, the Israeli regime has been trying to divide the region, the Israelis and the Americans and the Europeans, through their embassies, through their governments, through official policy, through NGOs. They've been trying to, through their proxies, local governments, despots, through racism, Arab, Persian, Turk, Kurd, through sectarianism, Shia, Sunni, through religion, Christian, Muslim, Jewish, always trying to create divisions so that they could impose their hegemony more easily. And now we see that there is total unity among many populations in the region. And when I say total unity, I'm looking at the resistance in the surrounding areas around Palestine, and I find that to be amazing, absolutely stunning, and how popular the resistance has become, how views towards Iran has changed, especially when Ayatollah Khamenei gave his famous Friday prayer speech, and he gave the second sermon in Arabic, which was broadcast across the Arabic world live. It had a huge impact. And this is largely due to the policies of the Israeli regime. Its own stupidity has created this awakening and brought these people together. And the same is true inside Iran. The United States and the Europeans have done a lot of work over the years to create division in Iran. Through terrorism, through funding different groups, through the sanctions. The sanctions have been brought about to crush Iranian civil society, just like in Venezuela, just like in Cuba, and to create anger and despair so that people would rise up against the government, and so that the Americans in the West could install a regime that's to their liking. That's basically what the policy has always been with sanctions. That's what they tried with Russia as well. They tried to turn the ruble into rubble and basically undermine the state and undermine Russia. It failed, but they do cause discontent and violence in countries, and that includes Iran. But what has happened over the last year, because of the genocide in Gaza, is that people in Iran, especially young people, who I once mentioned, a lot of young people who do not have a strong sense of history, especially after Corona, a lot of these young people felt that Iran was the problem, and that the West wants peace and stability, and they support human rights and human values, and that Iran has a grudge, and that it's the so-called regime in Iran that is the troublemaker. And if it wasn't for this regime in Tehran, we would have peace and stability and friendship with Europe. Some of these people were among my own undergraduate students, mostly undergraduate students, like between 17, 16 to 22, let's say, 21, that age. There were lots of young people in that age group. The last year has destroyed the image of the West. It has destroyed the image of the Israeli regime. People don't consider the West to be have anything to do with human rights. They see them as the greatest enemy of human rights and human dignity and women's rights and children's rights. And so I think that Netanyahu really doesn't understand where things stand in the region today. He has been able to slaughter many people. He has been able to ruin the lives of families. You wake up in the morning and you see images of a woman who's lost her husband and all her children. Or you hear of a man who went out to buy bread and he comes back and everyone has been killed. You hear these, or you see the images of dead people lying around every day. This pleases the Israelis from what we see and hear from their Telegram channels and how they enjoy this, but they are destroying themselves and they're uniting the region and they're uniting people within countries in the region against the Israeli regime. So I think that Netanyahu's statement, any statement that he makes, whether it's towards the Lebanese people or the Iranian people or the people of Yemen, it's only going to be ridiculed if it doesn't have the opposite effect. I don't even think people take it serious enough for it to have the opposite effect. But Lebanon is another good example. The West has always tried very hard, as well as their regional proxies, to divide Lebanon. And that is what the dirty war in Syria was about. The West tried to undermine Syria because Syria was the only country in the region, the only government surrounding around the Israeli regime that was resisting Israel. So the West and their regional allies and proxies tried to undermine it. The same policy was always pursued in Lebanon. So you saw divisions that were sectarian based, often racially based, because they tried to depict the resistance as Iranian and not non-Arab, or not. So that has been going on for a very long time. Now the sectarianism has been cast aside. Palestinians support Hezbollah. The Sunni, I mean, you always had people, you had Sunnis who supported Hezbollah, those who were opposed to Hezbollah, those who were influenced by the West and the Saudis and others, and then the Christian community and the Jewish community. They're always trying to keep them divided, but now you see everyone has been aligned, and the West is desperately trying to use their ally, people like Samir Jaja and others who were actually implicated, who were involved in the Sabra and Shatila massacre in 1982, where 3,500 Palestinians and Shia were slaughtered by these militias supported by the Israeli regime that had occupied Beirut. These are the allies of the United States in Lebanon. The rest of Lebanon, for the most part, is hostile towards the Israeli regime. So what Israel has done, what the United States has done, what the EU has done, what the British and the Canadians have done, is that they've brought unity to this region at different levels that was non-existent before. And I think that will have major implications in the weeks and months ahead. And again, another point that we have to remember is that this does not bode well for regimes that are pro-American. Does not bode well for them. They can, what we saw over a decade ago in North Africa, in Tunisia, when a young man burned himself alive, we saw how it shook the whole region. Right now, pro-American regimes should be far more fearful of the streets than they were back then.
Yeah. The finance minister of Israel is talking about the annexation of the West Bank. In his eyes, Donald Trump's presidency would facilitate the process of annexation of Gaza, the northern part of Gaza, the West Bank, do you think that with what we've seen so far, we know that the Middle Eastern country or the West Asian countries, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Iran, all these are talking about the problem that they're facing in Gaza and in Lebanon. But the way even with Saudi Arabia in the summit, MBS said that they have to, he was calling that they have to consider, their concern is the problem in Gaza and in Lebanon, both of them. And they're not considering any sort of, even with Saudi Arabia, relationship with the government in Israel, as long as they're having the problem of Gaza and Lebanon, and there is no, as long as that there is no possibility of having a Palestinian state. If they go in that direction, if they go in the policy of annexation, and Donald Trump, we know that Donald Trump, the behavior of Donald Trump would help them, would just support them, whatever they want to do. But what the Islamic countries can do in order to just make some sort of warning for the administration in Washington?
I agree. I think that Trump would most probably view any such annexation favorably, even though he may have reservations deep down, because any sane person would. But I think that would make things even worse for the United States and for the Israeli regime, because the outrage is building up. And the excuse of October the 7th for carrying out this daily genocide in Gaza is no longer accepted even by the most faithful supporters of the West in this region. No one believes that that what's going on has anything to do with October the 7th. And so when they expanded the genocide or the genocidal strikes to Lebanon, it only made things, I think, worse for the Israeli regime. And if they extend this policy towards the West Bank, even though there are daily killings in the West Bank, which are not reported in the Western media because it doesn't serve their purpose, it is only going to create further outrage. And again, as I said, at some point, the dam could burst. And if it does, I think the US presence in this region will come to an end. The Americans are in a very, very dangerous situation, because the only key thing that is that's preserving their presence in the region are few very corrupt families in the Persian Gulf. That's it. That's the only thing that preserves US presence in this region. And those families are desperate on the one hand because they feel that they need the United States. They feel the need for the United States because they're so, as I said before, bound to the West, and because they have no popular legitimacy, regardless of the issue of elections. But people want one thing: they want to support Palestine. They don't want to support Palestine. So they don't have popular legitimacy. But they also recognize that the West is, the empire is collapsing. So you can imagine how uncomfortable they feel right now. And that could lead to many things. Some spark could lead to a major, forest fire. Who knows what lies ahead? So the Israeli regime is playing a very, very dangerous game, and the United States, by supporting it, is playing with its own with its own fate in our region. And many would like to see that, by the way. Many in the United States would like to see that. Why do you think that right after Trump was elected, we heard the news that Iran wanted to assassinate Trump, coming from the FBI? My belief is that the very same people who tried to kill Trump are trying to raise tensions between Trump and Iran. Otherwise, the accusations are ridiculous. No one has the person behind it is not in the United States. It's ridiculous. But they want to increase. Why do you think the Americans, the current administration, is so keen on swiftly sending all of the committed aid to Ukraine before the change in government? Right now, the Biden regime, the National Security Advisor, Sullivan, all of them are stating that, yes, we're going to send all the aid that Congress has allowed us to send to Ukraine before the government comes to an end, before Trump comes to power. Why? Because they want to raise tensions between Russia and the United States as much as possible to prevent de-escalation. The same is true with our region. They want to prevent de-escalation. So there are people who would want to see an escalation in our region, who would want to see an escalation in Ukraine because of their hatred for Trump and the people in the United States. So there's that added element there already. But U.S. allies in this region are very fragile, and they're not popular. And so if the Israelis, it's sort of like the camel that broke the straw that broke the camel's back. At some point, you're going to see a major collapse. And when Iran strikes the Israeli regime, I think that will be another straw on the back of the overburdened camel, because people are seeing the vulnerability of the Israeli regime for the first time. They've seen it in Gaza. They've seen it in Lebanon. Hezbollah has been, they're extraordinary. They've kept the regime at bay. The regime, after we're approaching 2 months now, the regime has been unable to enter Lebanon. It's amazing. This has never happened before. Hezbollah is holding their ground. All they do is they come into a village, they blow up people's homes, and then they go back. Or they bomb Beirut and slaughter people, or they bomb refugees across it. That's their only success, and that only creates further hate for the regime. So I think that we are very, when Iran strikes back, it will again show the weakness of the regime. It will also humiliate those governments that are not taking measures against the regime, such as Erdogan. People in Turkey are very much opposed to Israel, but they see their government betraying the people of Palestine. It's going to put more pressure on Turkey. It's going to put more pressure on Jordan. It's going to put more pressure on the Emirates and Egypt and everyone else. And that, I think, is something very dangerous for the United States.
Yeah. As you mentioned, do you think that we had the attack from Hezbollah and Houthis on Israel? In both of these attacks, the air defense system didn't work properly as they expected to work. And we had the new air defense system, THAAD system from the United States, that didn't work. And at the same time, they're talking about attacking Iran, and they know how capable Iran is if they go in that direction. And we know from the latest interviews that Donald Trump may be, we don't know for sure, but his pick for the vice president, or his vice president, J.D. Vance, was talking about that we are not interested in a direct conflict with Iran. Do you think that there is still some sort of hope in Israel that they can bring the United States into the conflict in the Middle East?
Yes, definitely. I personally think that Trump is not the best option for Netanyahu. I actually think that he would have been better off with Harris. Because, first of all, Trump's opponents will use any support for Israel and for the genocide to put pressure on him. They'll use anything they can to put pressure on him. So his opponents are of different sorts. There are ordinary people who many have tried to protest and they've been crushed in the United States. But there are also the Democrats who want to undermine Trump. And while they were quiet and during the Biden presidency, they will probably use any opportunity to attack Trump. So Trump will have internal pressure on him, especially as I think the economic situation in the United States deteriorates. It's going to get worse for him. But also, Trump has a grudge. If we recall, Trump, when he was removed from power and it was declared that Biden won, Netanyahu immediately removed his picture from his, I think it was his X or his Twitter account. And that angered Trump. Also, Trump said some very negative things about him when they murdered General Soleimani. He said he backed out at the last moment. So Trump is not, I doubt he has great love for Netanyahu personally. And I think at some point he would like to undermine him, not to undermine the Israeli regime, but to undermine Netanyahu. So my guess is that it's probably in the long run, he's probably not all that good for Netanyahu. And I personally believe that the biggest enemy that Israel has is Netanyahu. The longer he stays in power, the more rapid is the decline of the Israeli regime. I think he's only serving his own interests. He's not even serving the interests of this racist regime. And that is going to have huge, enormous consequences in the future. But in addition to that, I think Trump is going to have multiple crises at home, and he is not going to be very keen on expanding his presence in the region, especially, and this is just my guess, I think that the Iranians will strike the Israeli regime very hard well before his presidency. And I think that the Iranians will, and again, this is my personal calculation or my personal analysis. I think the Iranians will be trying to show to Netanyahu and to others that, not to underestimate Iran's capabilities, but also not to underestimate Iran's will. And that if Iran is struck, Iran will strike back very hard. So I said once before, when Iran first retaliated after the Israeli regime struck Iran's embassy in Syria, Iran fired a warning shot. It had there were other things that they did. It was an intelligence gathering operation. The Israelis and the Americans spent billions of dollars trying to shoot down those cheap drones and a handful of missiles, but it was also a warning shot. The second time, it was a slap in the face after the Israelis murdered Ismail Haniyeh, after he was martyred in Tehran. The Iranians decided to slap the Israelis in the face. And then when the Israelis tried to attack Iran, regardless of the fact that it was more or less a failure, they didn't have the impact that they wanted, and it's clear. I mean, they did some damage, but they didn't do anything really important. It's clear that the Iran's power is much greater, but Western media and Western analysts are trying to play up the Israeli capabilities and play down the Iranian capabilities. So I think this time around, the Iranians are going to teach the Israeli regime a lesson. And I think that will be something that Trump will have to keep in mind when he assumes office, because a war with Iran is not something that he will win, and Iran will not back down. And one thing that I forgot to mention earlier, and that is when the Israeli, I think, defense minister, as you pointed out, said that, maybe you didn't say it, but he said that now we have an opportunity to destroy Iran's nuclear program. He can't. The nuclear program, regardless of Iran's air defenses, which are quite formidable, but they are deep underground. For example, they were saying that they destroyed the mixers. I mean, first of all, we discussed this before. If they hit these installations, there would be huge secondary explosions, and there were none. And there were no real primary. There were no explosions in the first place. But the mixers are all underground. They've been moved underground many years ago. Not because of Israel, because of the United States. The Iranians have been planning for a potential US attack on the country for decades now. So the nuclear program, the defense, the key elements of the defense program, they're all well protected. They cannot be destroyed through conventional weapons. So the Israelis don't have that power, but Iran does have the power to destroy Israel. Without a doubt, it does. Iran has hundreds of thousands of missiles and drones, and more than enough can be used against Israel. And the missiles that Iran would be using against the United States if they entered the war, they would be short-range missiles that could, strike everything across the Persian Gulf within minutes, and there would be nothing left. So the Iranians have been preparing themselves not for Israel. They've been preparing themselves for the United States. So I think Trump, he will take note of that when he comes to office. And as he has an opposition at home that hates him, and since he has made many promises to make America great again, and since things in the US economy are going to deteriorate quite fast, even according to his own supporters, I think Musk said something like that a week or two ago. Before the election, he said that there's going to be great difficulty ahead for the US economy. I think when you put all these together, it's going to be very difficult for the United States under Trump or under anyone, but in particular under Trump, to get directly involved in a military conflict.
I think to understand the capabilities of Israel, we have to look at what's going on right now in the southern part of Lebanon. Considering 1982, in 7 days, they could reach Beirut, and 2006, 33 days. And right now, after 47 days, they didn't even capture a single village in the southern part of Lebanon. This shows that after those assassinations, and the head of Hezbollah, the commanders of Hezbollah, and right now they couldn't even capture a single village. This is huge. And do you, in your opinion, the picture of Israel before this attack on Hezbollah and before October 7th, the intelligence picture, they're so powerful, the military is so powerful. Right now in the southern part of Lebanon, we're witnessing that they're taking huge casualties, and they're not even capable to fight on the ground. They're going by their fighter jets and bombing civilians. Do you think that even in the mind of those people who are fighting against Israel and Israeli army, the picture of Israel is changing?
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's also dangerous for, as I said earlier, for these regimes in the region that are pro-Western. It's not good for the Turkish president. It's not good for the president of Egypt. It's not good for the United Arab Emirates. It's not good for any of these regimes, because people in the region are no longer intimidated. They see that Hezbollah, despite losing all of its, or many of its key leaders, has been able to hold its ground, and the Israelis have failed completely, as you pointed out, which also, I think, shatters this Orientalist narrative, because the West is organized, it's it's competent, it's efficient, they have structures, they're sophisticated, and in the so-called Orient, they're despots, they're these leaders, they're brutal, their people are emotional. It shows that Hezbollah is far more sophisticated than the Israelis are. It's far more competent than the Israelis are. They've lost their leaders, but they're able to hold them back, despite the fact that all Western embassies in Beirut are conspiring against Hezbollah as we speak. Western embassies are working with their genocidal allies like Samir Jaja and others to stab Hezbollah in the back. the Western NGOs in Beirut are, carrying out their dirty, soft war against Hezbollah, and so on. So Hezbollah, despite the fact that Hezbollah is in a much more difficult position than in certain ways than even Hamas was. Hamas at least controlled Gaza, and Islamic Jihad was always with them. Hezbollah does not control Lebanon. Hezbollah has very dangerous enemies in Lebanon. But despite that, despite losing its leaders and its commanders, and despite having the entire West conspire against it from Beirut, the Western embassies look upon southern Beirut when it's being bombed. Western journalists look at the buildings as they're being bombed. Many of them, I have no doubt, gloat. I have no doubt that they gloat, and others are too cowardly to tell journalists to tell the reality. One small footnote, one very small footnote. I was in Beirut during the first 8 days, I suppose. And after the massive bombings in the day before Sayyid Hassan was martyred, I arrived in Beirut. After he was martyred and after the bombing of southern Beirut, I went on I visited Dahieh. There were journalists who went there, and I also went there. And then one of the international journalists, who I won't name, but you've seen him on television, you've seen him or her on television, came up to me and said, "I am so and so from this." We were like they just bombed southern Beirut. There's smoke rising from buildings. We're going from place to place to visit. And he or she came up to me and said, he said some kind things about me, but he said, "I'm not like the others." And he's from an important news outlet, a well-known news outlet. And I was, I hugged that person. Well, as a man, I hugged that person. But the point that I'm making is that, not all of these journalists are bad people. Some of them, I'm sure they're doing their best to get the word, out. But he was basically saying that, most are not like that. That's what he was saying indirectly, either because they're too cowardly or because they are a part of this ideological network of people. And of course, the embassies, they would love to see Hezbollah demolished and the resistance demolished. And they have no, when they call these when these families are targeted and slaughtered across Lebanon, we see it every day. I tweet out their images, pictures of families slaughtered. They're constantly calling these Hezbollah targets because not only do they want to dehumanize them, but they want to justify what the Israeli regime is doing. So they're a part of this genocidal campaign against the people of the region, these journalists, these diplomats, and so on. But Hezbollah has shown how sophisticated it is, that under these circumstances, being surrounded by enemies, that they've been able to keep this regime at bay on the border. And they will continue to do so. And they're firing missiles deep into Israel. They're firing rockets deep inside Palestine. They're firing drones deep inside Palestine, despite the fact that right alongside the Mediterranean, Western intelligence agencies and the military are giving all the intelligence that they can to the Israeli regime, and their satellites overhead are helping them. So this is showing people across the region that Israel is weak and that Hezbollah is strong. And this creates a confidence among ordinary people. And then that makes their weak regimes, the weak rulers that govern them, look even more, they look at them with greater disrespect or with dislike or contempt than before, because they see that it can be done. Apartheid, this ethno-supremacist regime can be defeated, but the king in my country, the despot in my country is busy groveling at the feet of Western leaders. So I think this is going to weaken the United States further. It's going to weaken these regimes that don't stand up to the Israelis even further. Even stronger countries like Turkey, I think ordinary people would say, well, Hezbollah, which can defeat Israel, why are you still selling oil to Israel? Why do you still have diplomatic relations with Israel? The rulers in Turkey will be remembered in history for the role that they played. And it's only going to anger both their supporters and opponents, or their traditional supporters and opponents. The same is true in Egypt and elsewhere. So Hamas, its resilience in Gaza, and of course Islamic Jihad as well. Ansarullah, its resilience in Yemen, and its ability to shut down the Red Sea to the Israeli regime and its allies, and Hezbollah in particular for what it's done under these circumstances. I think all of them are chipping away at the American empire very swiftly. Arabs across the region are looking at Hamas, Islamic Jihad, Hezbollah, Ansarullah, the Hashid in Iraq and others as, small groups compared to many of their governments with tens of millions of people. And they say these small groups are much more competent and effective and moral and decent than my government. So yes, I think we're heading for great change in this region.
And how about, just to wrap up this session, as time goes by, these people who are trying to manipulate the government in Lebanon, those people who are in the Lebanese government and support the position of the United States and Israel, how do you see their position in Lebanon? Do you think as time goes by, are they weakening or are they getting stronger? Because it doesn't seem to me that the United States, as history says to us, they're not capable of doing anything substantial to the position of Hezbollah in Lebanon. But how about those people who are supporting the United States policy in Lebanon?
They're betting on the wrong horse. They made a catastrophic mistake, but they cannot change. And so are other allies of the West in the region. The US empire is collapsing. There's no doubt about it. It's not just our region, it's the entire world. But this region in particular is where they're holding on very hard to the remnants of their ugly empire. They're holding on by supporting a genocidal regime that's racist, openly racist, where they proudly say these are chosen people. This empire is collapsing, and anyone that has to do anything with this empire is going to lose as a result. When this war is over, a lot of these people are going to have to leave Lebanon. They should probably start leaving now. But not just Lebanon. I think that the pro-American elites across the region are in grave trouble. And those who pretended to be supporters of Palestine and showed their true colors, they too are going to be remembered very poorly in history. But those in particular who supported the West on the so-called battlefield, whether in Lebanon or in Jordan, and in the countries that really matter around Palestine, they bet on the wrong horse. And we are going to, as I said earlier, I think this is all going to be, we're going to see great change in this region. Israel, in my opinion, is going to lose this war. It's going to have to accept a ceasefire that will be perceived as a victory for the resistance. It's going to be a victory for Hezbollah and Hamas and Jihad and all the others. I have no doubt about that. And I think the Iranian strike will be will contribute to that. After that ceasefire comes into play, and I hope it's sooner rather than later, but I have a feeling that we're going to see dark days and weeks, if not months ahead of us, but we'll see. But when the ceasefire happens, if not before that, I think that those who betrayed their people for the sake of the Americans and the Europeans, or despots in the Persian Gulf, they will discover that they've made a major mistake.
Go figure. Follow me.